Welcome again to another week of All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. And we are here today with a very special program. We will interview all of the candidates, or most of the candidates, for the Newark Board of Education, and and that will be our first hour. We have on now Crystal Williams. We'll have on Allison James-Frison. We'll have Tommy Luna, Phil Wilson, and Maggie Freeman on in the 6 o'clock hour. In 7 o'clock, we'll have Reverend William Howard on and an educational activist, Ronsha Dickerson, and they'll be talking about the education in general and the upcoming voting rights march. At 7:30, we're going to have DJ Rhino in the state of hip hop talking again and filling us in for another week on what is going on. I can imagine what that conversation is going to be like. And then we're going to have at 8 o'clock, we have the Honorable Congressman Donald Payne, who will be with us for the hour. So, in the spirit of what we do, we believe in civic discourse. We believe that we need to know about politics. We need to know about and educate the public. And in that spirit, we are interviewing all of the candidates for the Newark Public Schools. So we'll start with the team candidate of moving Newark schools forward and running. I believe you're running for the first time for Board of Education. Crystal Williams. Welcome, Crystal Williams.
Thank you so much for having me. I
Uh,
appreciate it.
Thank you for being on the show. And so we'll get you started off with the first question, and that is, what is there about your background that makes you very good for the board?
Okay, so my name is Crystal Williams. I am 43. I'm a mom of seven. I am a network technician with Verizon Communications. So my job all day is to diagnose problems, fix them in a timely fashion, and give them back to the customer to make sure that they are happy and they're satisfied. I believe that bringing that to the board would be an asset because I look at problems, I figure out how we can make them work, and then we get it back on track and we get it fixed. And the key thing here is that we have children's lives at stake. So their education should not have to wait months and years for something to change. Something needs to change if it's broken right away. It doesn't take forever. We need to evaluate, reassess, and then reevaluate and reassess until we get the correct mixture together for the children.
All right. And in that vein, when we look at the what it seems like the agenda of the current board is, it seems like they want to build a lot more schools and increase programs in schools, deal with COVID, and get more teachers, right? So it seems like there's like a school building, like there's multiple schools that have opened. The new Newark, the new vocational school. There's the School of Data. There's the School of Fashion. There are programs that are in the different schools, and we have there are also an effort to deal with the emotional fallout and academic fallout from learning loss in COVID. Um, Based on you running, do you and based on one of the most important responsibilities is oversight for the board. Is the board headed in the right direction? Do you think that the current policies of Newark Public School are headed in the right direction? And are there any policy proposals that you would fight for right now?
Well, to say that I have seven children and they all learn differently. They all have different backgrounds. They all have strengths that need to be pulled out. What I commend the public school for doing is the variety and offering children that to combat learning loss. You know, from the social standpoint, they should be able to not be awkward in social settings. Remember, we were in our homes for almost 2 full years, and that wasn't healthy. I mean, um, so to get children reacclimated to being back in the setting, being comfortable with one another, being social, and then co-curriculars. So like, um, baseball, football, arts and crafts, fashion, the design, all of that is just as important as academics. And it makes a more well-balanced, rounded out child, which is the goal, right? To produce healthy children. By the time they turn 18, which one of my kids set this up so they can help me with this? Sorry about that. But
That's okay. We've been dealing with at-home virtual learning so long; those problems
right.
are kind of normal, right?
Right. I know you can help me, baby. Okay. Um, yes. So, just in terms of policy, I would just like to get my eyes on things that are going on that side of the screen, to reevaluate and reassess, do the research, and come up with the best plan. Um, I commend the people that are there now. I know they are working hard, and they have the same goal in mind to make sure the children are best served in the city. I just want to speed up. If things are not working, how can we fix this? Where can we go? Where should we go in a timely fashion?
And to more specifically, like, or just more bluntly, do you think the district is going in the right direction? Like, based on its policies, based on what you see, is the district moving in the right direction?
Um, I would say policy is one thing. The actual data that has come out has said another. We were hit hard with COVID, and we're going to get an influx of funds to combat that. I just want to say that on paper, and listen, as a single mom, every month I, you know, plan out. And then when it is not right, I have to change the plan. When things come up, I have to change the plan. So for right now, if for right now, I would say I would just be open to listening to the research, reviewing what the data shows us, and then reevaluating the plan.
And one of the things that's been being talked about more now is that I know that one of the arguments that the district has with charters is that they're not taking enough special needs or more serious special needs students. Not they're taking not many bilingual students, and there's a lot of friction in terms of that student intake. Um, Charters take about 1/3 of Newark's public school budget. Do you think that there should be a moratorium on charter expansion?
I do not. I feel that the money follows the child. And so if the child is in a particular school, whichever school that is, that money follows that child. I can tell you that out of my 7 children, I had 2 that were special needs. One was severely special needs, and he was served at his school. And when he wasn't served at his school, as his parent, I reevaluated the situation, and I took him out and I put him in another school that served his needs better. Um, that's the goal, is always to look and see what's at the best interest of the child. So that being said, while that school worked for him all the way up until maybe 10th grade, it didn't work for him anymore. As a parent, I exercised my right to choose, and I placed him at another school that best met his needs.
One of the arguments is that um, when if if charter schools are taking disproportionately lower numbers of special needs, especially more serious special needs, behavioral special needs, ones that are actually more expensive to take, that means that when you're saying it's following the funds, then it's like charters are getting at least this is the district argument that charters are getting funding for students who they're not serving. So if they're not serving proportionally similar numbers of special needs, why, like, is that a problem?
Well, I would like to say this is the district's argument. As a mom who was in the schools, and whatever schools my children attend is where I'm at. So when my children were and some still are in those schools, and I had to go in there for reevaluations and planning and this and that. My son, and when we think about it, 100% of my son's funding did not go to his school. Some of his funding stayed back with the school he would be at if he attended the Newark Public School in my area, just in case he wanted to do, extracurriculars at that school, whatever. But he was being cared for, occupational therapy, social services, 2 times a week, occupational therapy once a week at the school that he was at. And even during COVID, he had Zoom occupational therapy. So, it's to say that the district is saying that, it's okay. I've lived it. I know what my child had, and I know what he received as a student at those schools. So I'm gonna say that I wouldn't be open to looking into it, but I've actually lived it, and I've seen the other students in his class. I mean, 20 or so students in his class, IEPs. My nephew has an IEP. My
And
daughter had an IEP, central auditory processing disorder. I had to take her down to Hamilton, to get evaluations done. So
but
you are talking to a special needs mom.
and if the data actually shows that the numbers don't match individual experiences, do you think that charters should take more, like if they are taking disproportionately low numbers of special needs students, especially the most difficult to deal with special needs students, would you think that that would be a problem?
I would think that that would be a problem. In the case that I'm dealing with, it's not even, it wouldn't even be possible, right? Because Newark enrolls. Um, so they go out and they canvas for all of these students, and Newark public schools actually places the child, as best as they can with the first choice that they select. So you have this child here, and this child has to learn. And I remember my son was in kindergarten. He punched the principal, but every day he got a new slate, and every day he was welcomed with open arms. Um, so the idea that it is very easy to say, oh, the schools push out kids with special needs or push out kids with extreme behavior issues. I had that child. My son was not pushed out. Eventually, I took him out, but that was after, 17 years of service.
Okay. All right. So, Zaid, do you have any questions to ask in terms of follow-up?
Crystal, I'm fascinated with your profile. A mom with 7 kids, been doing it. Children are welcome on the call with you, right? Here at All Politics Are Local. Well, let me just ask you this. Now, I'm looking at something that came up on your background in another candidates forum. What is it that you want to see get done in terms of your running? What is that ultimate tough question that you want answered?
For me, it's making sure that children are in an environment where they can learn, where they can succeed, where they feel welcome, where they feel loved. My children have received that, no matter what school I put them in. But then, my presence is known. Hello, this is my child. Thank you so much for taking care of them. I really appreciate you and everything you do. I want the teachers to understand that they are appreciated and valued by parents, whether we can be in your face and at your school every day or not. So for me, it's more the social, emotional, trauma-informed care. When you see violence around where you live at in your community, it's hard for you to go to school and try to focus on just the day-to-day things. I was fortunate enough to have a teacher in 8th grade work with me during my lunch hour, fill out paperwork that my mom didn't know about because she was in New York working. And she just really stepped up, took the reins, and got me into the Newark Marching 100. She got me to sit down and test for the SSAT. These were all things done by a teacher that she didn't have to do it, but she saw a place, a void, and she filled it. And I just want other children out there to have somebody to advocate for them, right? So I advocate for my children, I advocate for other people's children, and now and now I want to advocate for the city's children.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and let's let you close. We are running out of time for this particular segment. Thank you so much for coming on, and you can close out this segment. I do believe we have one more minute.
I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you. I'm running on the Moving Newark Schools Forward slate, where Dorian Murray Thomas is A4, Danny Gonzalez is A5, and I, Crystal Williams, is MA6. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Great having you on. And we are going to have the next candidate come on in just a minute. So thank you so much for coming on. All right. So that is All Politics Are Local. We're having the different school candidates come on one after the other and talk about their positions. So our next candidate who is going to be coming on is going to be Allison James-Frison, and she'll be coming on in just a minute. While we are waiting for her to come on, Zaid, what do you think about school board elections? What do you think some of these issues are? Why do you think that they're so important that we deal with?
First, let me say welcome back, sir. Glad to have you back. We missed you last couple weeks. The schools are the heart and souls of any community, right? These are our children, right? I'm a Newark parent, okay? These are our children. If there is a place where, if you're someone who cares about your community but don't know where to go to get involved and to make a difference, pay attention to your schools. The ripple effect of how your community does, a lot of it will have to do with how well your schools do. And for all of the great things that we have got coming through our town, and as the town is trying to make this Renaissance like coming back, right? It will mean nothing if we do not have the proper reins and the proper health that we need for our schools. And we've only had the school system back in our control for a few minutes, right? And so and we've got a lot to clean up that the state did to really do a number in the colonization of our schools, if you will, right? But the effort must be total, and the commitment from the community should be total. It is just so essential to the soul of a community.
Yeah, and we are still getting the our next people in. So I am just trying to make sure that we are contacting them and they have all the correct info to come on. So hopefully that will happen in a second. But can you talk more about like what some of the history is in terms of our local school board, just so people understand what's at stake, it being a local elected school board that actually has power now, as opposed to a one that did not have power before?
I know. I mean, we have, our school system has been under state control for so long. Well, there are a whole lot of folks walking around in this town that have no, don't know any other, board reality, which is really sad, because once upon a time, the city of Newark had a very vibrant board presence, right? And it was at the crossroads. There was some issues that state players took advantage of, unfortunately, and we lost control of it. And when the state came in and created an environment that I would say militarized and colonized the school in a way that, it was very clear that this community had very little input and access, to the determining of what the school should look like and what school policy should be about, right? I'll say, and this is my own modest space and appreciation of this. There are folks who are on the board who I'm very, very fond of, very proud of. We've got a young board of young parents, young educators, many of whom have a very serious community profile, and that's important. And we need not to let our school system fall into the place that a lot of school systems fall into, meaning that a lot of folks come to Board of Education as, quote, simple elementary or introductory stepping stones to some other places where they want to go politically. No, but Newark has been through too much and has got too much to do to get back or to get to a place of health, well-being, wellness, and stability to really be the anchor of the comeback of this town. So we've got work to do, and it's only been a few minutes. It's only been a few minutes since we're able to elect our own folks on the board. Have a process where we brought in our own superintendent. It's only been a few minutes. We lost the school for almost 25 years. It's in the 90s we lost the school board, right? And we just got it back a few years ago, and it's quite a task that's at our hands. So the question of how committed folks are coming into the equation, I would say to our community, is the first question you want to raise to folks who are asking for your vote in this process. So how we doing with our folks coming in? And if we're not, and if they're still trying to come in, let me just say, looking ahead, after this segment, we're going to have a profound intergenerational dialogue in anticipation of Monday's Million Voter March. Well, the actual title of the march is the Million People's March for Voting Rights, Equality, Democracy, and Peace, to mark the 54th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. So we look forward to that. We're going to look forward to that as we wait for the rest of our folks to try and get in. All right. We're going to have Reverend William Howard, a legend of both the prophetic Black church tradition and of the civil rights movement, and a young organizer from Camden who I'm very fascinated with, who reminds me of a very dear comrade named Ronsha Dickerson. Right. So we're looking forward to that. And then, of course, after that, this is the first Friday of the month, we'll have the Payne report. We'll have our own Congressman, Donald Payne, give his report on the latest that we need to be concerned about in the realm of the Congress. And of course, we will wind the show up with DJ Rhino's weekly hip hop report. What's the latest in the hip hop? So it's a loaded show. I hope we can resolve our guest tech issues so they can have the time that they need to make their presentation and their pitches. Some good folks running. So on all sides of this equation, that's good, which I will say from my own vantage point is modest. I'm pleased to see some good folks on both sides of this. So folks, really need to take a real look at what they want and what they think we need for our community, what we need for our children, and they should be the faces that they vote for, right? Community-based democracy. This is all politics are local. There's nothing more local than the school board and the school board's election, right? So this is the bread and butter of what we do in keeping our community informed, and one of the driving engines of this show's profile and mission, and it's a charge. It's a charge we have been given to our community with this drum, with this platform, since the show has been on. I'm honored to have been asked to come aboard to be a part of this show, as I was asked a couple of years ago, in the absence of one of its founders, a beloved educator, right? And one of my favorite former soldiers, the great Bashir Akinele, when he had to move on, I was asked to come in. So loaded show. So I want everybody to remember April 4th. April 4th is the anniversary of the loss of one of the greatest human beings we've had in the last century, in Dr. Martin Luther King. All right, I want everybody to remember that day. For those of you old enough who are still around on April 4th, and we need y'all to have a serious family and shop and organization and sell talks about what that day meant, right? What that legacy of that and that life that was sacrificed on that day, and why it is important to address incredibly the same issues in a very challenging way some 54 years later. 54 years later, right? Dr. King is a part of a movement, was one of the leading voices of a movement that won for us the right to vote in the 20th century out of Jim Crow segregation. And we're now in a space where folks are trying to take that back away from us. Take that back away from us. And it's not something that is without historical precedent, right? Coming out of the sickness and the savagery of the plantation system and the Civil War, there was a brief period in our country's history called Reconstruction. In our country, our ancestors walking off those plantations, leaving an environment where they could be killed for trying to learn how to read, created something in America called the public school system. It's all connected, y'all. Voting rights, Board of Education, our children, learning, it's all connected. It's all connected. And one of the first things that happened when reactionary forces came forward to take all that stuff away from us in the 1880s is they segregated the schools. All right, we're back.
Zaid, yeah. So Allison Freeman seems to be having some technical difficulties. What we'll do is we're going to go right to Thomas Lunas, the candidate for board. So welcome, and thank you for coming on.
Hi, Jonathan. Good to be back on your show. Good to see you. Hi, Zaid. How are you, good sir?
How you doing, son? Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yes, you are a frequent guest. The first question we're asking, just to get right into it, what is there about your background that make you a good candidate?
Yeah, there's two things that come to mind. One is that in this race, I am the only teacher, and I'm the only current teacher, right? I teach 8th grade math. Well, now it's 5th grade science. But I've been doing this all of my adult life, going in, day out, serving students, serving families. If this cut out.
Yes, I think are you back? No, I think,
right.
Okay, so this is that night.
He's there.
Are you back, Thomas Luna? Are you back?
Wait, I don't have any. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I don't have any audio. Oh no.
We can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. Only teacher, been serving students day in, day out. And I definitely believe that matters, right? I was there during remote learning. I was there when we reopened and realized the current state that we are in when it comes to the educational sphere here in the city. Because of that, right, I believe that background definitely gives me a lot of insight and a lot of advantage in making really sound decisions. The second piece of my background is that I'm a community organizer, specifically around policy. For about 5 years, I have been leading Newark for Educational Equity and Diversity, also known as NEED, to organize students, families, teachers, some elected officials to pass policies on the local and state level. Just last June, we were able to organize to pass 9120, which was about vacancies in NPS. And then using a lot of, sorry, there's so many things happening on my phone. Using a lot of strategies, we were able to work with partners at the state, specifically New Jersey can, to pass SB 2826, which was all about starting a pilot program to allow teachers to get inside the classroom a lot faster to address the teacher shortage. So with a vote for A1, like my background, you are bringing in a teacher, you are bringing in an organizer who has actually passed real policy. And I think both of those things put me in a really strong place to make really good decisions on behalf of kids and families and teachers.
The second question we want to ask you is...
Oh, wait, hold on, Jonathan. I wonder if I can...
Can you hear me now?
I still don't hear you.
We hear him fine, too.
We hear you perfectly.
Let's see.
You don't hear me at all?
Let's see if I can connect here.
Because your sound comes through.
I apologize.
Well, that's all right. It's all right. There's been a technical difficulty night. Crystal Williams came on smoothly.
I had trouble getting on myself.
We had technical difficulties from the second one. Now we have more. It's that's in the winds, right? Like sometimes some weeks it happens where like the technical stuff just keeps going on. But we may have it resolved soon. Can you hear me now?
Maybe type in the chat.
All right, so
I don't know what happened.
Okay, so
you made a powerful pitch already.
Can you hear Zaid?
Can you hear me at all, Thomas?
In the chat, let me see. Can you hear Zaid?
Mic check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. No, he can't hear us.
I can't hear anyone.
He can't hear us. Oh, this is unfair.
Right,
now we can't hear him. They say he was fine.
And now you're much lower. Can you try going out? Can you try going out and coming back in?
Can you see that?
Can you try going out and coming back in? Just pop on out and then pop back in.
Yeah.
Like it's funny that sometimes that happens. Yeah, they're like everybody's cell towers. Like some people are like, yeah, I blame the Russians. And they're like, oh, it's a conspiracy, right? It's hilarious. I don't know, but the first person we had on real smooth. Then after that, everyone's like,
and he was smooth. I mean, what we heard was good. He made his pitch. It was clear.
Right.
He was on a roll.
Right. And at first, like our second, at least he got higher than our second guest. Our second guest couldn't even get on, right? So I guess that's one of those things. You're in technology. Is it
all
better?
Right.
You hear us?
I hear you. Yes.
All right.
All right. Let's roll. All
right. So, getting to the second question. The district right now seems to be has a policy of expanding public schools, expanding new opening schools like the School of Data and Technology. They reopened vocational. There's a school of fashion. There's even in elementary middle schools. There's the Michelle Obama School and programs in each of them. There's also like a push to deal with the emotional harm of COVID and in terms of and academic learning loss. From your vantage point, is the district moving in the right direction? And what are the policy proposals that you want to push?
I think with the moves to open schools that are specialized towards student interests, I think the district, in that capacity, the district is moving in the right direction. I also see it as a way for NPS to really invigorate itself with the expansion of charter schools, right? There was a time where it was just like, oh, look at them, how dare they? And now it's like, cool, we're going to build schools and we're going to build them better, and we're going to build them to provide for student interests that we know students and families want. And I think that in that vein, it is really smart to move in that direction, to build better schools with stronger programming and give parents that option of something else in the city that is really strong. With regards to the mental and social emotional state of our students, I think it's mixed, right? We just passed a budget that allowed for more psychologists and more social workers. And right, that's a move in the right direction. However, it's not enough, right? And I think that as we continue to see what's happening, and as we continue to get a better feel of where our kids are, even after 2 years after we reopen up, I believe it's going to require more money to get psychologists, to get social workers into the building to really provide a strong safety net for students and families. In terms of my proposals, right, I come with the platform of two sides. One is equity and one is community. And under each of them, I have 3 policy proposals and FOSI. So one of them under equity is a lot to deal with positive culture. I think that, as a teacher, I know that my room is strong and I'm giving kids what they need when my room feels joyful and warm. When you see hands being raised, when you see, kids talking with each other and engaging with the work. And I think there's a lot of strong teachers that do that across the district and get zero credit for it, right? I think in that vein, if we push as a board to really prioritize positive, strong, and affirming class culture and school culture, we can see those strong teachers that do this daily really be brought to the forefront, really be utilized for professional development. We can get rid of some of the stuff that, doesn't have any use for teachers, to be honest. And then we can double down on sharing those best practices across the district. And I think that if we start to really focus on building really strong classrooms, that creates a domino effect across the districts, because strong classrooms are strong grade levels are strong schools, strong goals is strong schools, strong district. And I think the other side of that is, as we engage, this is on my community platform, we start to build really consistent community forums. When we had a new superintendent search committee, right, the district put up several different nights where community members could engage and ask questions. And I thought that was beautiful. And I think that's something that we should continue to do no matter what, for the different things that we are experiencing as a city, for the different visions that we have moving forward. And I think it's something that we can implement really, really easily.
And so let's get to the next question, because I know we're running out of time. And this actually is a big, huge controversy within the district. I know the district is really pushing back against certain charter schools because they're saying they're not accepting enough special needs, especially difficult special needs students, some of the most expensive and most difficult students to deal with within the district. And this has been an ongoing pushback in terms of charter expansion. Right now, close to 1/3 of Newark Public School budget goes to charter schools. Given the controversy, given the amount of money that's going to charter schools, when there are serious questions as to whether they're actually serving proportionally all students the way they need to, do you think it's time to have a moratorium on charter expansion until we can have more better conclusions?
Personally, no. The issue that you bring up, I think, is very true for a number of charter schools, right? I won't say all. Like I teach at Rise. I have special needs kids. There are students all across that we have different programs and day in and day out programs, ELL students, etc. But to your point, like, I think that is not the same across all schools, right? And I also believe wholeheartedly that people allow what the law allows them to do. And so for me, a moratorium isn't the solution, because a moratorium would, pause that, and then you'd have to do a study. Those take a lot of time, and then the results of the study take even more time. All the while, you still have students not getting what they need. Rather, I would rather have a strong push legislatively to ensure that, all schools are required to take all kids no matter what. If you're going to get public funding, then you better take all of the public. And I think that is a legislative move that we have to hit, and we have to make sure that is corrected so that people cannot deny students access to equitable education.
But in the meantime, if that does not pass, you have a situation where 1/3 of Newark Schools' budget is going to many schools who, it may be shown, do not educate all Newark's children. Like, there's a difference between different levels of special needs, right? Like, there's a difference between a kid who needs another half an hour on a test, or he needs certain minor supports, and certain behavioral special needs students who require a lot more, that can be a lot more disruptive, right? So I think so here's a question. If that is true, then if continuing gives even more money, right? Like right now, 1/3 goes to charters. Is there a limit to the money that can go to charters? Because we know that, like, if enough goes away, that will hurt the Newark Public Schools. And some people argue it already has. So how much should we be giving to charter schools? What should the limit be, or should there be one?
Yeah. I mean, when I think about where money is going, right, personally, right, in the way that it's set up legislatively is that money follows kids, right? And I think because of that, the district, as I mentioned earlier, is making a really smart move by opening really strong specialized schools that are attuned to student interests and family interests. Because the way that you're going to bring kids and families back in, right, is to provide something that other schools don't, right? When I think of the charter networks, there is no fashion design. There is no data science. This is something really novel. And because of that, you see some movement. For a while, if you look at the enrollment data, right, the charter schools were siphoning off thousands of kids, right? And now we're at a place where it is slightly leveling off. And I think if we continue the route that we are taking as a district to provide different opportunities that nobody else offers, right? That is something that it can turn that tide to bring more families back into MPS, which would bring in those dollars. I don't think it's necessarily, stopping to say, hey, that's not it. Let's, go after them that way. But it's saying, hey, let's build something that's better than them. Let's build something that is going to really attract lots of families. And I think that's what we've seen happen so far with Michelle Obama and Isaac Newton and Benjamin Franklin. And I think if we continue that route, we're going to see something really awesome in terms of providing some other places where kids can get educated in our district outside of charter schools.
Okay, we have run out of time on this, and we do have our next guest who's in the back, but we really do need to have a lot more of these conversations. And I know because we want to have all the candidates on, 10 minutes is not enough time. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For coming out.
All right, appreciate y'all. You have a great evening.
And like with all the candidates, no matter what happens, we want all of you back to have some more good conversations about education.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. All right. That is the second segment, All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. And we are now also, we have our next candidate on. We have Phil Wilson, who is running for the Newark Board of Education. Hello, Phil Wilson. How are you?
How you doing? Sorry, my kids was in the background.
That's okay, because like everybody, it's home, right? So everyone has kids going in the background. They're part of the guests. We got that.
We can't have kids in the mix and talk about board education. Something wrong with us.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. So, Phil Wilson, we're going to start you off with the first question. So the first question is, what about your background makes you a good candidate for the Newark School Board?
Well, I have over 20 years of experience in teaching for the school system. I taught at Essex County Vocational High School, Union County Vocational High School, and I taught in the Maryland School District. I am a state certified CTE instructor in auto collision, so that makes me very qualified. I worked at a nonprofit organization called UCC, which is not a community corporation. I started out as an instructor and I became the director of the training school. So I have knowledge of school system, how it works, and how it progresses. Currently now, I am the chairman of the Newark Head Start Policy Council program, and also a vice president of ECC Early Childhood South, which my twins attend to currently now.
Okay, so right now, when we look at the Newark Board of Education policy, right, where we see their direction is, we look at they're opening a lot of schools, like they're opening new data technology school, they're opening a new fashion school, they're opening Michelle Obama, they're putting programs into current district schools. Question is twofold. And they're trying to deal with the socio-emotional learning loss of COVID, right? Like the emotional learning loss and the learning loss of COVID. Those are their stated policies. Do you believe that the Newark public school system is moving in the right direction? And what policies would you pursue as a member of the Newark School Board?
Well, as the Head Start Policy Council member, we already approved sensory boards for the kids for next school year. So they're dealing with the emotional and social aspects of it for early Head Start. We just already secured funding for next year as well for Head Start program, over $10 million. So we can still continue the Head Start program, which is Michelle Obama school has pre-K3 and pre-K4. And that's a great And it's a great thing to have fashion design and data entry in the public schools. I'm a trades person, so I'm with that, and I hope to get on the board and bring more trades to Newark Public Schools. I think fashion design is very good because that sparks people's interest, right? So it makes them want to come to school if they learn the fashion and design and data entry with IT work. That makes them come to school. It's something for them to learn, and you can take that skill with them for future endeavors. Meaning, as in, if they can learn how to make clothes and design clothes, hey, you never know. They could be the next Tom Ford, next Gucci, right out of the city of Newark. And that's a great thing. I'm for that, 110%.
Okay, so so you think so? Just to be more blunt, you believe that Newark is moving in the right direction, and there are policies that you would push that are different.
Yes, I will push more. I will push more CTE trades more than fashion design and data entry. They're moving in the right direction, but we need to move faster because we're behind in that. During the pandemic, you see what was open. You had auto shops, mechanical shops, carpentry. Home Depot never closed. Lowe's never closed. So we need to get our children in those kind of trades as well.
All right, and I think that if I remember correctly, you've always been an advocate of the trades in that way. So I don't think this is the first time that you're saying that. Am I correct?
Correct. I'm a trades guy. I took it from experience. I went to Peshon K through 8th. I had home ec, had wood shop. My pops was an auto body technician since the 1940s. I was the youngest of his siblings, and I took the trade at Newark Tech. Graduated from Newark Tech at a high rate, and I one of the highest guys in the state at the time.
Oh,
and I started at UCC at 17 years old, training young adults and adults. People come home from jail, and I just stuck with it, and it's been a successful career for me so far.
All right, nice. And so I'm going to move to the next question because I know we're running out of time. But given there's been a lot of arguments by the district that charter schools are not taking their fair share of special needs bilingual education. They're putting out numbers. They're like, look, here's the percentage in the district. Here's the percentage in the charter schools. And they seem to be lower. 1/3 of all of Newark Public Schools budget goes to charter schools. Do you believe that, given that there's a serious dispute as to whether Newark charters are actually educating all children, that there should be a moratorium on charter school expansion until that issue is clearly dealt with?
No, I clearly said I'm for school choice, right? I think all children should be learned, no matter if it's public, charter, or privately. All kids should be learning, and there shouldn't be a hold on the money if kids is learning, right? So if you put a hold on it, that means the kids ain't learning, and you got studies, and studies takes forever to do it. In the meantime, what's going to happen? Them kids that the parent that decide the kids that go to charter will be stuck, right? I know next year's budget, I believe Newark is allocated to give them $46 more million for the charter school budget, I believe.
It's something along those lines.
Yeah,
I know it's roughly 1/3 of.
Yeah, I believe that
roughly 1/3 of the entire budget.
All kids should learn. No matter what, privately, like I said, privately, publicly, or privately. I have all my kids. My 3 boys go to public schools right here in the South Ward. My 3 boys one goes to Chancellor Avenue, other 2 go to Chancellor Annex. I still call it Chancellor Annex, which is now called.
And I guess on the follow-up to this, and I know we're running very much out of time, but if there is inequity in, like, if charter schools are not educating all kids, doesn't that hurt public schools as well? Like if we keep expanding and charter schools keep expanding and they're not accepting the percentage of special needs, won't that actually hurt public schools because they have to deal with disproportionately more special needs than charters with less money?
Well, they should take all kids, the special needs or not. The funding is there for that. When I taught, I have kids with IEPs, and my kids got bussed in. when I worked in Union County Vocational High School for the whole county. So yeah, these should be taking them in. It should be no kid denied access to learning. Are we educating our kids, or are we schooling our kids? Let's educate them.
Okay. All right. Well, and thank you. And we just had our next guest that was on. So I will let you, but she just disappeared again. We're having you didn't have any technical difficulties. We're having some guests that do.
Yeah.
So we are making sure that we have everyone on. So we yes. So that last question I was going to ask is, do you have any? Is there anything else that? Well, actually, we do have our next guest on. She just came back. So thank you so much, Phil Wilson, for being on. And just very briefly, who should they vote for? And just like 30 seconds, tell us why.
I'm Phil Wilson, 8'3". I've been out here 20 years doing the work. I don't need no accolades. I don't need no pictures taken saying what I'm doing. Just trust the process. I'm a father, the only Black father that's running for school board. And when elected, I will be the only Black father on the school board. I'm a part of the Dad Network here in the city of Newark to get more fathers involved, and I'm out here every day. Right now I'm about to take my kids to T-ball practice. And then after that, I have a youth outing tonight. Every other Friday, I'm out with the youth. We're doing something. Game night. Tonight is Bible night, so with the youth. So I'm out here.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate having you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So we have our final candidate on for tonight. We have Maggie Freeman, who is on. And hello, Maggie. Are you there?
There she is. Okay. Maggie, can you hear us?
I'm having audio issues. I have to try to log back off and on. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you well.
I can't hear you at all.
No.
So let me try to
try logging off.
I'm going to do it one more time.
All right, great. See, that's happening again. It's like every other person.
Yeah.
But at least some of them could get on, right? Like we had one candidate who couldn't get on at all. So that is it is what it is on that level.
Sir.
It is what it is.
And they're good candidates too. I like what I see. I see good in all of them, and that's refreshing. That's refreshing without being, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think that like having larger conversations about education are things that we always really need to do. We need to do more of that.
Okay, I think I'm good.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, I didn't know if I were talking to two robots or I didn't know what was happening.
We do something else. We ain't no robots.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Let's go to work then. Go ahead, John.
All right, so welcome. The first question. What is there about your background that makes you a good candidate, a great candidate, or the best candidate for the school board?
Okay, so I do have experience in social science with Essex County College. I attended high school at a vocational and trade school. But what kind of makes me qualify and why I feel that I should be a board member present day is because for the last 10 years, I've literally sacrificed my life in this community to ensure that the youth today have opportunities that I didn't have when I grew up. It's one of those sobering moments where you just see history repeating itself, and just knowing the work that I performed within the last 10 years with several community organizations, members, and colleagues alike. We have installed new fields, turf fields in the county park. We've created a space to have new builds for community centers. I've worked with police departments, all types of public safety departments, just to ensure that violence is not a factor in this particular region. So just to know that Weekway Park now is considered a safe haven for the community, and we see over 200,000 people a year, to know that work manifested through just hard work, efforts, initiatives, and just working in collaboration with different entities and the government agencies. I know that I can bring all these tools to the Newark Board of Education and kind of help transform what's happening now, because we are in crisis in our schools.
Okay. And so second question, and that's a perfect segue into the second question.
Sure.
The current Newark Board of Education, the current Newark school system seems to have an agenda that is to expand different schools, to expand programs in existing schools. Like they opened the School of Data and Technology, the School of Fashion. They're opening the Michelle Obama School. I believe they revamped and reopened the vocational school. Do you think that the Newark public schools right now is headed in the right direction? And what policies would you advocate for?
So the implementation of those particular opportunities, I would say, it's headed in the right direction. It's only it's kind of missing the mark though, because it's not available for the entire district as a whole. So right now, policies that I would be focusing on is making sure that introductory to trades, all of the ones that you mentioned for the different schools that are being implemented in currently, that all the students from K through 12 kind of have access to that, because right now, and I'm in the South Ward of Newark, and I'm also looking in as a parent to send my child to high school, and really the options are really bleak when I look at what is being offered in the schools, and everyone doesn't have access to everything. So that's one of the challenges that I'm looking to kind of bridge those gaps, and we've done it and outside of the school system. So I know that I can bring that to the school district for sure. Because having a background in trades, having access to those professionals, just knowing the right people to contact, like there is an abundance of things that can happen that most likely probably won't even impact the budget. It's just knowing how to work together. And I just feel like the district right now is missing the mark on those opportunities, unfortunately. But it can change with the right people in place.
So what are the policies that you would advocate for?
So that's one of them. So making sure that we expand the trades is one that needs to be created. If it doesn't exist, then it has to be created. So we're not even looking at old policies. Some of them don't work for us. We have to create new concepts that will work for all students.
Okay. And so the next question is one that is very contentious within the district. We're talking about like there have been lots of push to limit charter school expansion by the current district, by the current leadership in the district. They've alleged that when it comes to special needs, when it comes to the students who are the most difficult to teach, that the numbers don't add up. They do not. Charter schools do not, and many of them are worse than others, but they do not educate proportionally the same number of special needs, especially the more difficult to deal with special needs, like bilingual, behavioral. They do not educate those kids, and is there and 1/3 of Newark's public school budgets goes to charter schools. Do you believe that until this is sorted out, until we can guarantee that charters are actually educating all kids like they should, that there should not be charter expansion? We should not push for the expansion of charter schools. There should be
I agree that we should not be continuing anything, pushing anything further until we assess the damage that has been done. I'm actually a parent that has her child in charter school, not because I wanted to, it was because I was forced to. And I was a part of the entire Newark enrolls, the shutdowns of our schools. There was over 10 schools in the South Ward that was closed. And I literally could not enroll my child in Newark Public School. So this topic kind of hits home. And I have personally seen as a parent, the disproportionate issues that you're mentioning happen firsthand. So to know that we need to assess what are the outcomes so far. We're kind of 8 to 10 years in. What are the outcomes that we can tangibly see? Has it been successful for us or has it not? There's been co-location and all these different things that our kids have been subjected to. And we're kind of seeing the negative impacts of that right now in our streets. So just knowing that many of these students and children that are doing some of the violent behaviors, I know for a fact that they came from many of these charter schools. And just knowing that we have some research to do, that needs to be done first above everything else, because we can't continue down a cycle without knowing where we're headed. Okay. And if we're continuing these patterns of disproportionate, behaviors and all these dysfunctional things that are happening in our schools, how are we going to progressively go forward? How are we going to do that without the information we need?
Okay, and we have one final question. We have
Sure.
less than a minute left. What is there that what do you want to tell us? Why should people vote for you? What is the most important reason why people should vote for you? Tell us in 45 seconds.
So there are three things that I definitely want to work on. Expanding the economic and financial literacy. That's definitely one of the major things that is missing in the community, because right now there are a lot of projects that our children are not equipped to handle. Expanding vocational trades and introducing that through K through 12, so that the students also know that there are career paths that may not be college bound, but you can still have a successful life, and also know how to maintain your life in a quality way. These are things and tools that I'm looking to bring forward if I am elected for school board. And I really do hope so. I'm A2, Maggie Freeman. That is who I am. That's what I stand for. I'm community first, always. I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life in this work, and I'm committed. I'm committed all the way through, and bringing every resources at my hands or at my disposal to this community in a positive way, in a progressive way.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
We appreciate you, and we appreciate all the candidates that came on.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And again, we definitely need to have all the candidates back on at some point, just even after the election is over, to continue the discussions that we have about education. We have them. We don't have enough of these conversations. So thank you.
Awesome. Now I can get back to my NFL flag football with the youth right now.
Yes, thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much. Take care.
So yeah, we really do need to have more of these discussions about education. I think that is really important that we have these conversations on a more regular basis, right? Like having people who are activists, having people who are involved, the people who are running, whether they win or lose. We should really continue these discussions. But we're moving on to our next discussion, which is going to be really good. 7 o'clock hour, we have Reverend Bill Howard, and we have community activist, education activist, Ronsha Dickerson. And so thank you both for coming on. I thought that was great when you were scheduled. I know you're here to talk about the march that's going to come on about voting rights. But before we get into the march on voting rights, and there are two things. I want to first, what did you think about the conversation we had about education and those questions? Because I know both of you are very involved in education. Both of you are very involved in how we educate our kids. Can you just comment briefly on the conversation, the questions, the answers? What did you think about that? I know Ronsha, you're in Camden, but is there anything we can take away from this?
I'll go first. Good evening, everybody. So happy to be here with y'all. Thank y'all for having me on. Yes, I'm from Camden, and the tale of two cities, right? Camden is an extension of what Newark's been through, and I think that I love the fact that you all are holding space to give the candidates that are deciding to run against a system that they did not create, but they're trying to fix, an opportunity to speak their voice and tell their why, but also give their experiences of what they witnessed through this transition that we've all been through state takeovers to getting state control, getting from back under state control to trying to build out this dichotomy between charters and public schools. It's a lot to take in at one time and ingest. And some folks, the average person may not know, but having candidates that are connected to the work, grassrooted, and understand what needs to happen to build a better dialogue and understand the trajectory of the racism that exists, the fact that it is a lack of equity, the fact that we've never reached equality is important to name. So I appreciate the two candidates that I heard come in and speak. They seem like they were, I don't know if I'm supposed to say Newarkians. Is that what I'm supposed to say? They're from the city of Newark, and they
all the Newarkers. You say Newarkers. Yeah,
Newarkers. Okay. Newarkers, they have an understanding of the pulse that's on the ground. So I appreciate that. That was profound to hear. And it's a model for us in Camden to make sure we hold those who are running accountable. Folks want to run for office, but we got to hold them accountable for what is your platform and how does it unite to what we need for the future of our schools and our school communities. So I just appreciated the conversation. You're muted, Brother Jonathan.
Muted, Jonathan.
I always do that. Reverend Howard, do you have any comments on on education in general, the Newark School Board race, or some of the issues that you think are important that need to be covered?
Well, of course, I'm familiar with the Newark situation, and Newark has been through it. I mean, it's a national experiment run by people who I would say have questionable commitment to the city of Newark. And I was impressed. I didn't hear, I only heard the last candidate, and I was impressed. I don't know her, but I resonated with several of the things that she talked about. It's obvious that she understands a bit of the history, but if I could throw a little light on this subject that might be neglected, let me just say that we should also keep in mind that the public school system in Newark is a business. And if I had the contract for I don't know that they have the old style chalkboards with chalk, but I remember once thinking, if I just had that contract, I could be a rich man. So we got to have people on the board who understand these systems as businesses that spend a lot of money, and the board members have to be capable of evaluating the executives who have responsibility for running these businesses. I don't mean to suggest we don't have people who can do that, but I think it is vital that voters look to candidates. You need grassroots advocates for families and children, and some of those people have got to have business acumen, some capacity to understand physical plant needs, legal issues, issues of curricula, and other things. I mean, unfortunately, some of the best candidates, some of the most articulate and passionate candidates have been in the area of child advocacy. And I think that's vital, but I hope and pray not to the neglect of some of these things I'm mentioning. So maybe that's enough for me to say.
It's a mouthful. You're muted, Jonathan. That's a mouthful. That's a mouthful, right?
Yeah,
battles are won and lost in details.
Right, and I think that's an excellent point that you made, and something that even I overlook. Right, a lot of times when talking about this, people who have a background that can sort out the numbers and what's real, what's not real, what's there, what's not there, like all the stuff that's that you'd have to do in oversight of anything, of any institution that you have oversight. So,
but Jonathan, let me say too, I should probably say that for several years, when I led the congregation in Newark, we actually hosted the candidates' night. You may be familiar with this.
I remember.
I've been to
That's right.
And that's when, of course, the state was controlling things. But now that we have won local control again, the stakes are very high that we get quality candidates to fight for the schools. Because in those days, I was astonished at the people who were running for school board. So I've seen the caliber of people, salt of the earth people, don't get me wrong. But, you have to scratch your head and ask, what do they actually bring to the project at hand? whether it is the curriculum design or building safety or analyzing a balance sheet, you know, I mean, these are the things that ultimately make or break a business. But thank you for, I didn't come on tonight to talk about this, but thanks for the opportunity to
No,
say a few words. You know,
I appreciate it because I have been to some of the candidates forums. I do know that you are, like both of you are experts in this. I know Reverend Howard, you in Newark, and Ronsha, you in Camden, and so you being on right after our candidates forum is just an opportunity
Great
that
segue.
I had to
Natural
take, right?
segue.
Like I had to ask you these questions. So thank you.
thank you, thank you.
Now, before we move on to the next segment and talk about voting rights, I'm going to throw it to Zaid to give a proper introduction.
I don't know if we need it now because we're already into it. It's about to just dive in. But this is a wonderful intergenerational dialogue. I'm going to say from the top that we're not going to have enough time to do this conversation justice. I think this may be both of you on with us for the first time. It will not be the last. We will make sure that Reverend Howard, it's an honor to have you. And I'm scratching my head as to why this is your first time on, because you've been a treasured resource for us for a long time. I personally have been following you since those days back in the 70s and 80s with the American Committee on Africa. You know, the range that you have brought to our struggle and to our prophetic tradition is something that we all truly appreciate. Ronsha, daughter, you remind me of another Newark legend who's very close to me in the Black Panther Party, who was fighting for her life. Your profile just screamed at me, right? Everything from your martial arts to your dance, your commitment to education, you know, your carrying of the culture in a very Queen Mother way, right? And the fact that you're quite an organizer. And Jonathan, you might not know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the great Zul Lateef Zahiratu, right? You remind me so much of Zul. It's incredible. And in fact, I may have another conversation with you to bring your troop up here in a tribute to this warrior queen, because she's a special person and she's in a valiant fight for her life on a very serious medical challenge in the way that cancer does a number on our community, right? So it's good to have you both. Now let's now unpacking it, right? 4th is the 54th anniversary of the loss of the drum major for justice, who was Dr. Martin Luther King, and probably me and Reverend Howard are the only ones on this session tonight that were old enough to remember that day. But it's astounding that in 2022 we find our country at the crossroads on some of the very same issues that we thought we were breaking ground on back then. And we did, in fact, break ground on them. But American history doesn't go in a straight progressive mythological line as we've been taught. We have advances and we have setbacks. And some of the setbacks that we saw certainly in the 19th century set us up for a whole lot of hell that took us a lot of time to get out of. So we're indeed at the crossroads. So the thing that we want to get out of both of you from your respective purchase first and foremost is, why is this kind of gathering so important? Ronsha, you're bringing a bus all the way up from Camden. I mean, that's saying something. That is saying that, you know, people really need to pay attention to the urgency of this moment. And Reverend Howard, you know, you are our link to that huge wave of struggle that produced so many gains and made so many sacrifices that got us to a place that we want to make sure that we do not want to lose any more ground on, right? And to be sure, sir, from you, we want to actually get that, ask that ultimate question, is that as we go into this, as we try to go forward, you know, what are those important core things from the legacy of Dr. King that we need to bring with us, as opposed to just, you know, the need to protest. So Ronsha, let's start with you. You know, I mean, you coming all the way from Camden, you got a lot of field Negroes coming with you. You know, if you don't mind me using, maroon language, right? Bring them all. Bring three busloads.
That's right. That's right.
Bring
No,
her, come like Fannie Lou Hamer came in 1964.
come on, get on the bus.
Baby. You understand?
Absolutely. Yeah, I understand. And I'm feeling so much energy. And I know we don't have a lot of time. We can talk forever. I just want to stop and say I'm just grateful to be on a space with you all and just honored to be with Reverend Howard again. We shared some space on the last panel with Pop's when Pop did a kind of conversation around why we're in this moment. But to be quite honest with you all, when I heard about the issue, the conversation around this event, I said, no, we got to get a bus. We have to have a bus because in the city that I come from, I witnessed voter suppression. I witnessed the delusion of voter rights. I witnessed our young folks not having a piece or a part in the conversation around why should we register to vote?
No, hold. We got to stop you right there.
What's up?
Hold on. Now I know you were born sometime in the 1980s, right?
No.
And you said you witnessed voter suppression in Camden, New Jersey. In your lifetime?
Modern day. Yes,
what? Because see, when folks think about this whole question of voting rights, we're thinking about the drama that is happening in the South. But it's not just happening in the South.
It's right here in New Jersey.
So unpack what you're talking about in terms of what you've seen in Camden for a moment.
I'll tell you this. So when I say voter suppression, I'll tell you about two things. I'll share two quick stories. Back in 2017, 2018, back to this, let's use the school board as a conversation. Camden lost his right to vote for a school board. We were on a mission to regain our power to vote for the school board. And I say we built a coalition of union folks, grassroots people, workers union, teachers union, community, faith-based community, students, everyone, parents came together to say, we need to get our power back to vote. Now, remember, the shift that happened was we had the ability to vote for a school board at one point, and then the mayor at the time, she had the power to appoint school board members. So again, collusion starts to happen. This is real conversation where you have folks who sit on certain committees in Camden City or Camden County. They get pushed to be appointed to be an advisory board member. So these advisory board members have no power, but they sit as the power to say, I sit on a committee, I sit as advisory board, I make certain things happen in the community, but they were not listening to the voices of the people. So we took to the streets. We lawyered up. We got an attorney. Shout out to the New Jersey Education Association who understood that our voting rights were being compromised. Shout out to the local Camden Education Association. I'll shout out Dr. Keith Benson Jr., who was a trailblazer in committing to getting this to happen. Then all the organizations that signed the lawsuit against suing the Department of Education, suing the current superintendent, suing at the time the Commissioner of Education, and suing that time advisory school board. We went through about 3 grueling years of litigation to get a judge to respect the fact that this was a case. They kept throwing it out, saying it's not a case, it's not a case. It took us to get to appellate court with 3 judges up in Trenton, 3 white judges to say, why is this happening in Camden to the opposing side of this lawsuit? The lawyer at that time said, because Camden is not in compliance with the QSAC, what they're asking us to do in QSAC. We got to have certain data, certain numbers, can't be felt in these areas. It's just like a way to keep schools suffering. So the judge asked another question. This is not verbatim. He said, show me another city that you have taken the control of the school board and they're also felling in the QSAC area. They couldn't name one. They said, so why should Camden be the only city in New Jersey that does not have the right to vote? So we went from that, winning the appellate court piece to just only getting a referendum question on the ballot. Now, y'all know Black folks, people of color don't always read the referendum questions. They they just go down the line and vote for who they think they should vote for. And generally it's in column 1 or whatever column they have gotten for the Democrats that are running for that time. We had to do a ground campaign on a question that was created to trick the people not to vote. So the question went like this: vote yes if you would like to continue for an appointed school board. Vote no if you would like to change to be an elected school board. We got the question in August. The election was in November. We had to hit the streets. We had to make no the sexiest word in the world and make everyone vote no. We turned out and turned up the community, not a machine, only the community turned out, and we got the highest turnout of voters in Kansas City in 2018 aside from Barack Obama's election, that came out to vote for a referendum question, and we won and we beat the machine. Now, I'm telling this story to say that during that time, people were not coming out to vote. We got the same down the line. We get 5,000 people in Canton. We have 77 or 76,000 people that live in the city. And out of that group of people, 40,000 are registered voters. For the last election that we just had, back in the general election, we only had 16% of those folks come out. 16% of people came out to vote in the last election. That's a problem. Out of that 16%, a quarter of those, more than half of those folks were vote by mail. People are not coming to the polls, so they feel disenfranchised. So when I saw that Larry Ham, the great Larry Ham from from POP, and I saw other folks chime in about why we have to make this moment real, we said, we know how to mobilize and get people on a bus. And we put it all call out there to the community. It's on a Monday. It's during work hours. But what else are we doing? Take your Zoom call on a bus and come up here to Newark and stand for what you believe in. Voting rights. So let's change what that looks like in New Jersey. Let's talk open. Let's create let's erase the divide line that we see in New Jersey where you have North versus South. Let's say we're all one and we're standing together because we need grassroots to stand with grassroots. We need faith-based to stand with faith-based. We need youth to stand with youth. And it doesn't matter what part of New Jersey you're from, we're all encountering the same experience. We're having this experience of racism, inequity, the lack of respect for our voices, and the lack of respect for our votes. And we say enough is enough because we're tired of people knocking on our doors, creating a ground campaign, or just throwing up your posters when it's time for you to run for an office and not respect the fact that when we call on you to make a change in our communities, we want to change immediately because we are the power, not the people who run for office. So we just said we're going on the bus. I'll tell you this last thing and I'll pass it over, is that the bus that we're bringing is full of students. That's the part about what we're doing. The voter rights campaign that we're starting in Camden, we want to do it like SNCC did before I was born, but the way that we look at SNCC and not romanticize about it, but really get to work. Find out why get these young folks, not just children, but youth, engaged and involved in the voting process. Make them understand, educate them about civics, let them know the role that each elected official is supposed to play and what they're supposed to do, and learn to teach them now how to hold those folks accountable at a young age by attending meetings with adults, by being a part of the conversation, by being on committees. And so we can pass the torch, because I don't plan on doing this for the rest of my life. I want the young folks to call me and say, Sister Ronsha, we're going through this. Can we get your advice? Because I want to be on the beach chilling and getting a nice tan because I put my work in. So I want to replace myself. That's the goal. The goal is not to live it forever. We can always be a part of it, but we don't have to be the person in front of it forever. So how am I going to rebuild another Ronsha or 3,000 more Ronshas in the city of Camden and across the country? I just want to shout out my national organization, Journey for Justice Alliance.
So I asked you about that. Go on, come on.
Shout out my national organization, Journey for Justice Alliance, and our sister city right in Newark, Parents Unified for Local School Education, with Sharon Smith and the late Johnny Latner. We are a part of the Journey for Justice Alliance, and what we do there is we are an education organization of organizations that are Black-led and Black and Brown-led. However, we have to build a quality of life agenda that's informed by the people who are directly impacted. The power is within us. Those who are closest to the pain should be directly closest to the power. So we said we're formulating a quality life agenda that we are doing across the country. We're taking every grassroots organization's ideas, thoughts, how they're building out what they're doing in quality of life, not just education, safety, housing, healthcare, economics, whatever it is that's hitting in your community, because that's the same thing Dr. King did for when he went to for I Have a Dream speech. That was the quality of life march. And correct me if I'm wrong, Reverend Howard, that was your quality of life. It wasn't one thing, it was multiple things that we were fighting for at one time. And the legacy continues. So that's why we're saying we're coming to Newark. Children, parents, everybody on the bus. We're gonna get out, walk the bus, scream equity or else could be you don't help.
Scream loud, baby. If you're going to scream loud.
You're going to have 1,000 kids in front of your house. Or else could be fascism. If you don't want to support this, or else could be what we're going through right now in America. Yeah. So racism is at its high, it's at a very high point, not at its highest, at a highest point. But what we can do about it is we can take action and organize young folks and make an intergenerational fight to push back against the things that we know that we can change, the powers in the people.
Right on. And I want to say this also to you, and then we'll segue to our beloved elder, is that I want you to know that All Politics Are Local is an important sponsor of the upcoming 50th anniversary convention of the 1972 Gary Convention, the National Black Political Convention back in 1972. And we do have some educators, not a lot, right? One is on this call, and he's being modest about it, right? But we do have some educators who are looking at what was done in Gary as an experiment in grassroots democracy, right? And making that as a teaching tool and a model to help their students learn what democracy looks like and how democracy is going to work. We want to fill you in on that because that's something I'm sure you could do something with down with the young souls that you're working with down in Camden. So right on. Love what you're doing. Love what you're bringing. Glad you're finally with us. Reverend Howard, dear sir.
Greetings.
How do we explain to folks Ronsha's age and a little younger, some of whom actually think that because we are dealing with these issues now in an emerging in the face way to them, that we have never done well with protests and the kinds of organizing and things that we've had to do and have done well to make real differences in our lives, in our community, and to break down some barriers. Because I just, folks, you too young to remember how things were before we had a Voting Rights Act, before we had a Civil Rights Act, when them signs were real and then, and folks would make you disappear or make an example out of you with police before the police even get to you. That existed in some of our lifetime, right? So how do we explain to that generation that Ronsha has got her hands on, why this is important?
Well, first, let me give some advice to you two brothers on this program. If you want to have a good life, you want to cast your lot with a Black woman on fire. And this young lady, Ronsha, has, I think I've begun to grow a little hair on my head listening to her talk.
Amen, and I shaded some of that.
I think that her focus on organizing is very, very important. And I just want to commend her and urge her not to tire, because organizing will bear fruit in the oddest of places where hope has virtually died. Organizing can be a new source of purpose, energy, and results. The next thing I want to say is that we have been pretty good at raising hell down through the generations. But in terms of mass movements, we've not been quite as good at diagnosing our problem. This is where Martin is very important toward the end of his life. We've had individuals right through our history who have been great at analyzing our situation, but they've not had platforms in mass movements. And in effect, we are fighting, whether it's the movement for Black lives or these young people who were effective in the Amazon Union organization earlier today. We're fighting these battles, voting rights, the rights of marginalized people in the society, because we have prescribed solutions that were a response to an ill-informed diagnosis of our problem. If you could just think of going to a physician and having that physician send you off to the drugstore to treat a problem that you don't have, this is how you can maybe put in simple terms what we're up against. And we have these feelings of progress, and I don't mean to say there has been no progress, but we don't really address what Martin aptly defined as the need for a revolution of values.
Come on. You're right where I want you to go. Right on.
And you see, if you don't tackle that challenge, you're going to have miseducation. You're going to have poverty. You're going to have racism. You're going to have violence. And on top of that, you will have the pandemic that bothers me the most today is not COVID-19. It's ignorance and the death of curiosity. If we don't ignite among young people a hunger to know more deeply our situation and then how to organize to change it fundamentally, 50 years from now, the youth will be confronting the same challenges. I can tell you, I never would have imagined in my lifetime that right-wing racists in the United States would be aligning themselves with modern-day Russia. But that is exactly what we see today, in part because racism is being forced to express itself today in a new way because of the changing demographics of the society. And I'm going to say, let's not prescribe a salve or an ointment for a broken back. And that's my challenge to Ronsha. I think she's going to be okay because she's an artist. The artists always show us cracks in the wall. They always show us alternative routes to our goal. So I look to the artists to tell us what the next breakthrough is going to be. My fear is that we've misdiagnosed what the American project is. And by the way, there's great literature that we can consult that lays all this out. I'm reading Du Bois's wonderful book on Black Reconstruction again, because that tells us more about the dilemma that we're in at this present hour than most books you can read. I think the 1619 Project is a great project. But you know, our thinkers have told us all we need to know almost 100 years ago.
Talk show host Gary Bird once said, I interviewed him many years ago, and he said that the playbook's been written. We just need to study it. The playbook's been written. And when I was asking him questions about how do you not give up? How do you not feel nihilistic? And part of it was like, well, we've got a lot more than we've ever had before because we have the playbooks. And he was like, and started naming the people who have documented, who have written, who have told us how this works. When you're talking about that in your diagnosis, and you're like, we have the wrong diagnosis. What is more of, like, can you elaborate more on that? Can you be more specific?
Yes. I would love to. May I please elaborate on that? Now remember, I said
this is our drum. You play it.
Ronsha, let me say, don't you give up your art.
Yes, sir.
You know?
I hear you clear.
That dance thing, is going to get us a lot further.
Yes, sir.
Than political discussion.
Yeah.
So here's what I have a weekly coffee with a brilliant African-American expert on world literature, and I meet with an authority. The third person is an authority on ancient African cultures and languages. And yesterday, we talked about the hunger that we see in society today for personal recognition. And that goes with the hunger for material things, the way people betray trusted friends in order to advantage themselves. And that's because people feel alone in the world. And unless people feel that they're part of a community that cares for them unconditionally, and that they actually know unconditional love, they'll behave like animals.
Bring it, bring it.
And if you look at the people who are leading our organizations today, especially those that have to raise money, they're a bunch of self-promoting people. And all of us are guilty of this to some extent, because we don't know to whom we belong. I'm not speaking theologically, I'm talking about sociologically.
Mm-hmm.
If people, and you can still see societies in the world now where this is true, where community is more important than the individual, people are not hungering for more money and more position, because they feel nurtured by the culture of unconditional love. And capitalism, unregulated, unbridled,
Dangerous.
with no accountability, produces radical individualism. And what is radical individualism? A person who belongs nowhere. Jonathan, am I sort of getting close to where you want me to go?
You're muted, Jonathan. I'm gonna say yes while he unmuting.
Yeah, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say we really need to have you on for a full hour. We really need
No.
to.
I'm
you
the
back.
guy who I'm the person that Ronsha is aspiring to be. I'm not on the beach, Ronsha.
I need you.
I'm trying to get there.
Trying to get you there. I'm trying to get you there, Bob. I'm trying to get you there.
And let me say, maybe Jonathan, Ronsha and I should have a few chats on the phone.
Yes,
so the next time when she's on the program, she can also speak for me. Think about that, because let me tell you something. I'm a Negro who knows who he belongs to.
I hear that.
And one of the people I belong to is cooking a dinner downstairs that I can hardly resist. I'm gonna have to go now and go eat that. But
we wish we were in the same space for some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you know, I retired, and I'll use this little anecdotal story, Zaid. When I was retiring from the church, I would say around Father's Day, Ronsha, they started celebrating my departure. I said they were celebrating so early because I'm leaving in December, because they were glad to see me go. That was my joke. But I announced 2 years in advance that I was going to retire, and the church didn't take it seriously. So when they saw that I was really going to retire, they really panicked. And around June of that year that I retired, they started almost, I would say, a couple times a month, they would have some kind of celebration. So the young people had a big thing where they roasted me. And after the service that day, a woman came up to me and she said, "Dr. Howard, how do you feel?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, are you how's your health?" I said, "Oh, as far as I know, pretty good." She said, "Well, great." She said, well, how is Sister Barbara?" I said, she seems to be doing pretty good." She said, well, why are you retiring? I said, do you want me to stay? She said, oh, yes. I said, well, that's why I'm retiring. If you know who you belong to, you can step off the stage. And you see now, you see in Camden, we see in Newark, we see in Chicago, or wherever we go,
Africa,
elders
the continent.
who can't leave the stage.
Oh man, this is too much for me.
I went through the same thing when I retired from the new Black Panther Party.
It's too.
Look, I said to you, Zaid, the other day, maybe, I don't know, I was talking to Ron the other night, Ron Daniels.
Yeah.
And I said, Ron, man, the young people I meet give me great hope.
Yes.
You see, the movement of the 60s never enjoyed the majority of the people. There were young people who were crazy and passionate and full of energy and determination. And then there were those who were, wasting time. We need to understand that's the same dynamic that we have now.
Yep.
And I always cuss out practically these people who talk about the Black church being the vanguard of the movement back in the day. As Moms Mabley says, what Black church was that? I was there. I'm from Gut Bucket, Georgia, Ronsha.
America's Joe, that's right.
Okay.
And there were about 25 Black churches in America.
Small town. Go ahead. Make it play.
Maybe 5, but I think more like 3 would permit a mass meeting. I didn't mean to say their pastor was a leader. They would just permit a mass meeting in their space. Do you understand?
I know we wind us down, right, John? I told you.
Yes. So I am gonna wind us down, but we really do need to have both of you back, right? Like we are going to have to do that. And Reverend Howard, like it's when an elder speaks who's been through it, done things, been there, seen things, we take notes. And so I know we're like 10 minutes over, right? And I'm just like, but we're gonna have to have you back, man. We're gonna have to have you back.
Read Black Not Dutch, and that's part of my story. So
right on.
And I'm working on another manuscript to my granddaughters to tell them what it was like to grow up in the Jim Crow South, because the young people today can never, Zaid,
yes, sir,
live the experience that we lived.
True. It's true.
They're dealing with the same structure,
but never the same experience.
And that's why I say we'll never produce another Marvin Gaye or another Etta James.
Come on.
Birthday's tomorrow.
But we're going to produce some other serious artists coming forward, but they will come out of a different context, because food, language, music, it comes out of the lived experience.
Yes, it does.
And look at us, we're having a meeting on this little gadget here.
Right.
And my elders could not have imagined that.
Right, that's right.
I got on a Dick Tracy watch, Zaid, right? Remember that? The Dick Tracy watch?
That's
Jonathan and Ronsha don't know who Dick Tracy is, right? and my father-in-law was a gadget guy.
Right.
But he didn't imagine that one day we would be pressing a button to crank up a Mercedes, because that's what you did with the 37 Dodge.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, are you aware of that? That back in the day,
did not know.
That's how you cranked the car up. You pressed the button.
Press the button.
Did not know. But we are definitely gonna have to have you back. It's an honor. It's an honor to have you on.
Absolutely. I was so looking forward to that.
It's an honor to have you on as well. And I want to get into even more conversations about the intersection of dance and politics.
Yeah.
And what that means. I think there are a lot of conversations that we
Jonathan,
absolutely
we cannot do this convention without dealing with the intersection of the Black Liberation Movement and the Black Arts Movement.
It's true.
right,
That's right.
exactly,
That's
right.
exactly,
Please,
Okay,
exactly.
Ronsha,
So,
the revolutionary lives for the time when he or she is not needed.
That's right.
right,
That's
Right.
right.
So
Mhm.
you know, this is a wonderful conversation. It will continue.
absolutely.
You got to ask
Absolutely.
the questions, Jonathan.
Yes. So, and actually, DJ Rhino, can you ask the questions? DJ, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Mhm.
sir.
We can hear you.
Peace, peace, peace. First,
Peace.
I have to give much love to Big Sister Ronsha and definitely Baba Bill Howard.
Mhm.
Got to give y'all love
Thank
first
you.
and foremost. Salute to y'all. I wish I could be on camera right now. I got a nasty sty under my eye. That's the only reason why I'm not on camera right now.
Oh,
Take care of that. Take
okay.
care of it.
Yeah, but
As long as your wife
but nah,
ain't punch you now, you're all right.
yeah. So but nah, this is it's definitely a political hip hop show. You know, we talk about politics, activism, education, and we talk about hip hop. I just wanted to ask both of you, Ronsha, you can go first. Who would you say in the hip hop world and hip hop music, or in the hip hop culture, that you would say inspires you the most or speaks to your spirit the most in hip hop?
Across genres, just modern day or former
Any
hip.
any
Whoever
era,
sets you
any
flow.
era, just whoever really you connect with in hip hop.
So, yep, I grew up in an era of hip hop when hip hop started. So I can name a lot, but right now I would say always inspire. I can always revisit their lyrics and get motivated. It's always going to be Public Enemy. I think Chuck D is one of the illest
Yes,
lyricists that have ever set foot on the earth.
yes,
And I want to also pay homage to the Queens. Queen Latifah will always be my number one stunner.
Jersey.
Sitting with a queen and her lyricist looks like even today still.
right.
And then I want to shout out to like the newer generation, like what's going on now. Toby Weekway, he's doing an amazing job of just
Yes.
making sure that the conversation is real, it's
Right.
rooted in purpose, and he's using what's happening in the world to stimulate our young people to say, you can do this without cursing, you can do this without gyrating your body, you can,
Right.
you can do it with covering up, you can do it as a family. And I think that's where I'm going with this. So that's why I think.
Yes, those are
Queen is
great
spoken.
names.
Young Queen is spoken.
Public Enemy is my favorite for sure.
Yeah.
And those are great names. And you know, Queen, that's our queen out here in Jersey. So
Come on now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Mhm.
So Big Brother Bill Howard, who would you say? I know, you know, this is a hip hop question. I just want to know who you would say that you know of, that you've heard of, that you feel connects with you and your spirit, who's speaking to you and your spirit when it comes to hip hop. And it could be somebody from back in the day, it could be now.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, and I'm going to blow your mind with this.
Okay.
I'm very happy to leave hip hop to your generation.
Okay.
I value it. I listen to Talib Kweli and a few others, but I'm just, I mean, I don't sit around and listen to hip hop. I'll tell you
Right.
that.
Right.
But the fact
We were
that
talking about Lee
you
Moore the other
do,
day.
the fact that you do tells me the truth of what I said before. Culture grows out of the lived experience.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And I am a hard bop man.
Yes, me too.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to say, I want to listen to Horace Silver. I want to listen to Coltrane. I'll listen to Roy Hargrove, who I love.
Long
You
live
see,
Roy Hargrove. Young man.
Nina Simone's lyrics and the way she presented them.
Yep.
Yes.
But hard bop, and I can go on and on, because some of you will know that we created something called a Jazz Vespers
That's right.
at Bethany,
At the church.
which is now over 20 years old, still going. But the young people, I mean, when look, when Sam Cooke was really hot, and when the Drifters were singing "Dance with Me,"
Yeah.
my elders didn't know anything about that stuff. They had their own music. See,
Right.
that's the way I read the young artists today who are exciting Ronsha and you guys. And by the way, I don't want to pretend I don't know about them. I'm just trying to say to you that I'm from a different era. And by the way, I grew up in rhythm and blues territory. I'm talking, you either heard country and western, or you heard Bobby Blue Bland, Sonny Boy Williamson, Jimmy Reed. This is who you heard.
Right.
So you know something about these people?
I know some of those names you mentioned.
Little bit. Very little.
Yeah.
Listen, Bobby Blue Bland says, I know you've been hurt, but I'm going to take care of you. Right?
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Blues is a healing. That's
now
right.
go, Ronsha.
I'll get ready to go run some Johnny Hook on some of that.
I'm writing it down. I'm writing it down. Listen, if I can say anything, I know we got to close out. I just want to say I'm grateful to sit in the presence of our elder and Pastor Dr. Howard. I wrote down so many of your sayings. I want to put them on a shirt and sell them for you. You had so many critical sayings that can move people from thought to action.
Right.
I appreciate the way that you broke it down in a way that makes all of us think and like I'm not doing enough yet. I'm doing something, but I gotta do a little bit more. So
something you said though about people going to the polls, right? Here's the thing, and you gave two examples of people really turned on by voting.
Yes.
We have generally wound up voting for people that other people pick.
Right.
We vote for public questions.
Yes.
That other people decide.
Absolutely.
If you put the people's questions and the people's candidates on the ballot, they'll be lined up before the polls open.
That's right.
Wrapped around the building.
And the truth is, not just black folk, but people of color who don't know where they're going to eat tomorrow. Their lives don't change after the election.
Yeah.
So why is it that people should get excited about voting when their lives don't change?
Lives don't change.
Right. Ooh, hello.
That's a strong one.
That's fair enough, right? And that's exactly why we got to have you back on, man. That's exactly why we need to have you back on, because Ronsha, you were like, we could have T-shirts, right? We could print like based on the stuff that's being said that could actually make people think differently about their lives in the world. So
when you want to talk about international questions, invite me back.
Oh, we are definitely.
Rhonda's got this thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Rhonda's got it.
Thank you.
Well, we will do that. So thank you, Reverend Howard. It's an honor.
It always
is an honor. And we will have both of you back, maybe even at different times, because we will ask you a lot of biographical questions too. So we would love to have you back as well.
Oh,
so thank you.
Loved it. Thank you all.
Keep dancing. Keep dancing.
I won't stop
dancing.
All right. All right. See y'all on Monday. Can't wait to see y'all.
Right on.
I'll see you Monday, March, for voting rights in Newark.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Turn it up. Turn it up for the streets. Love y'all.
Love you much. All right. So we have you on DJ Rhino. DJ
sir.
Rhino in the state of hip hop. I know that you're like, it's not a good look this week. It's not a good look this week.
Yeah, I don't want to go in there with a little bubble under my eye and all of that. Usually when I get a sty, if I wake up with a sty in the morning, it's usually gone by like midday, but this one's hanging on a little bit. So
all right. No, I understand that. This is the week for, having, something happen to someone's face and it just be talked about a lot. So I'm
it's crazy. My daughter just sprained her ankle today. She's in the hospital now. She's about to come home. But yeah, she sprained her ankle playing volleyball today. But we took her to the hospital to make sure it wasn't broken or fractured.
Yeah, she's good. She's okay.
Yeah, it's just a sprain. They're wrapping it up, and she's gonna have crutches for a little while.
Now, always right, because she's amazing. I'm sure she's intense at everything that she does. Probably a question that she asked is, she's being carted off. Did we win? Did I score?
Oh yeah, right.
Right. So it's all good. It's always good.
Yeah, it's all good. But But so what I wanted to just start off with, you know, yesterday was the anniversary of the passing, or should I say, the murder of our brother Nipsey Hussle.
Wow.
He was murdered in today back in 2019. On this day back in 2019, yeah, right in his hometown in LA, right in front of his shop. You know what I mean? They took him out, man.
Yep.
And
When-
but I, and
when
you know, I
Charles
remember
said-
that was
that's right. Mhm.
yeah, and I remember, you know, that it shook the country. It really shook the world. Those who knew about Nipsey Hussle, those who follow Nipsey Hussle, that shook everybody up, man. Because you know, people were really, you know, Nipsey was really, he was really
presence in this
coming.
community.
He was coming into himself. He was coming into his growth. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And that was something that really attracted me to Nipsey, because I remember the first time I saw like a little interview with Nipsey, and he was still young. He was still on the streets, but the way he was talking, I remember just the way he was talking, he just sounded like he had something bigger and better in mind. You know what I mean? And that's what attracted me to Nipsey. I was like, all right, let me see where this brother's going. And sure enough, man, you just see him turning his life around. You know what I mean? In a real positive way, man. He was just turning his life around, and it was a beautiful thing to watch, to see that transformation, to see him grow, to see him become an adult, and really do things in this community. And so, you know, when this information came across, when this news came across, man, it just shook everybody up.
Well, the thing
I'm
that
gonna tell you
was
something.
wild to
Go ahead,
me,
Jonathan. I'm sorry.
yeah, the thing that was wild to me is that we heard that when we heard that he died, everybody under 30 was like heartbroken, shook.
Yeah.
Everybody over 40 was like, "Who's Nipsey Hussle?" Right?
Right.
And then we found out, and we were like, "Yo, why did we only find out about him after he passed away?" I mean, there are a lot of people who found out about him later, but we were a little shocked that everybody under 30 was devastated. It was like Tupac got killed, right?
Yeah.
It was that intense in terms of the feeling and emotion that came from basically most of the people I knew who are under 30, right? Who were just like, wow, devastated.
Yeah. And I tell you, John, just, you know, you brought up Tupac. That was the thing about Nipsey. In my eyes, I looked at Nipsey like he was a brother that was basically trying to put forth what Tupac was talking about. A lot of the stuff, a lot of the changes and a lot of the moves that Tupac was talking about making, you know, Nipsey was actually doing that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it was almost like Nipsey was the next one to carry that. You know what I mean?
And that's where I was going. You know, Nipsey is also East African, right?
Right.
And as he came into his own, you know, sense of knowledge itself, he also had the beginning of a budding Pan-African instinct too. So, you know, we definitely would have gotten more from that young brother had we not lost him. He was definitely emerging as a force, and he had an organic presence in this community. Right. He created spaces like that space that he had that, you know, everybody knew where he was. So I guess this fool wanted to make a name for himself, you know, and foolishly and recklessly took him out, and we lost the gem in that young brother.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So definitely rest in peace to the soul and spirit of Nipsey Hussle. You know, and you know, love and prayers out to Lauren London, his kids, and his family. You know, and just you know, just love out to that brother, man.
Can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it.
That's right.
Or really that short, like only really.
Yeah, it's only
only 3 years, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it's been longer than that.
It does. It does feel like it's been longer than that. And then, you know, I remember getting this news, man, you know, today, and I have to bring this up because, you know, some people would say this is not hip hop related, but as much as we've sampled this brother and I mean, you know, again, talking about Tupac was kind of like a hip hop version of this brother for a lot of us. You know, today is the anniversary of.
Come on, son. Come on.
We lost Marvin Gaye on this day in 1984.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. There's one more. I need one more. Keep coming.
And both
were killed. Go ahead, Syed. Go ahead.
Guns, man.
Today's also the birthday of the bluesologist, right? One of the godfathers of rap. That is none other than the late great Gil Scott-Heron.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
In fact, some of my comrades are doing a park-based dedication to him. They did it already, right? And I couldn't get out there, but they did a little dedication for him today. Gil is also, you know, he came through the Lost Poets matrix, but his band and his musicianship took him to another place. and
right.
he was important to in an intergenerational way to the music, and definitely was a beacon of consciousness. I'm gonna tell you this about Gil Scott. His voice haunted me through COVID. What I'm talking about. The last piece he did, it should be the anthem for the COVID pandemic in my modest judgment. And that is "Me and the Devil," right?
Right.
And it's about the confrontation with the angel of death.
Yes,
right?
It's a real dark one. That's the one that stands out the most for me off that album. Brother, that's the one that stands out for me off that album.
That was a classic one off that album.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep for weeks behind that.
Yeah, man.
And it's still when my anxiety goes up, I'm like, Gil,
Yeah.
Well, because and you're saying that because you actually dealt with almost dying of COVID, right? Like you actually had to have conversations.
Lost some folks, it's they hit a lot, I mean, and lost folks got hurt from COVID psychologically that didn't even get the disease just by virtue of the environment that it created, especially for our kids. My baby girl is going through something, and I haven't figured out how to pull her out of that. It's just some deep stuff.
Well, it is 8 o'clock. So if it is 8 o'clock and it is the first Friday, we know it is the Payne Report. So welcome, Congressman Donald Payne, the Honorable Congressman Donald Payne. Welcome to the Payne Report. Good to see you again this week, man. Good to see you again this week.
How's everybody?
Doing well.
All right. How you doing, brother?
Good. DJ Rhino.
What's going on, family?
You, brother.
All right.
DJ Rhino, the truth.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, I would say the best DJ in the entire universe. I'm glad that you are doing the things on Twitch because, I actually miss hearing you. I actually miss hearing what you do every week because it's always so inspiring.
Yeah, man. Yo, whenever you get a chance, check me out. Twitch.tv/Rhino CMZ every Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m.
And that's tomorrow as well, right?
Yeah, every Saturday. Yeah. But real quick, I know it's time for Big Brother Payne. I just want to ask the three of y'all, what is your take on the Will Smith Chris Rock? Real quick, I had to ask. I had to do it. Will Smith is.
I'm gonna say this.
That's hip hop. I got to bring it up.
There's a side to me that and I'm sure folks haven't said anything to me about it yet because, quite frankly, I stood up for Will, right, and I stood up for the black woman, right. I think, and all these apologies that have since come out, I think Chris owes black women an apology, right.
Really?
I mean, it's one thing to crack on somebody, to be cracking, but it's another thing to mock somebody in an illness that's disfiguring, right? That was and the young brother that was the producer was on the morning show today and said that was not in the script. We had a whole thing planned as to how Chris was going to roll, and he came out and started freestyle and it changed up the whole thing. Now, to his credit, right? He didn't fall apart, he didn't retaliate, it didn't degenerate anything after Will did that, right? So there, there are problems on both sides. But had Chris not said that, right, Will stood up for his queen, and I said I put it on Twitter, and I'm weighing whether or not I should or should not have done it. But Malcolm came right through me. The black woman is the most disrespected person in America, the most neglected person in America, and the most dishonored, unprotected person in America. So the daddy that I am, the beloved protector of black women that I've always been, I was with Will, and then Will corrected himself by apologizing. So that's me.
Okay, John, what about you?
I think that graveyards are filled with people making those decisions. I think that there are two levels of it. Like Chris Rock shouldn't have cracked the joke. But I don't think he got hit because of the joke. I think he got hit because, there were a lot of things going on. And Will Smith's, the joke that was made earlier by Regina Hall was a lot more vicious than the joke that was made by Chris Rock. Because that end of the day, G.I. Jane is fine. Jada's fine. If it was a comparative.
I thought it was a compliment. Basically saying that she looked like a soldier. She got short hair, but she looked strong like a soldier, which she did. Jada looked amazing.
100% fine, right? I think that I understand the way they took the joke. I understand that the joke like that is always dangerous. in terms of that. But, you know, with Will, I think that I can't give credit for like that's protecting a Black woman when there are people who actually die actually doing physical protection of a Black woman, and there are Black women who die because their quote honor needed to be protected. Black men who die because of this notion of honor. There are a lot of different ways to deal with things verbally. There are a lot of different ways to deal with that in terms of insults. I think that we have graveyards full of Black men who die that way. I think that that is a thing, right? And
Sure.
I think great Black women, what they often do is Black women aren't the only one who need to be protected. Black men do as well. Will Smith never got protection. Will Smith's not getting protection. Will Smith, his ego ridiculed all the time, right? And like, if we're going to be real, it's not anyone else ridiculing but the one he's protecting, right? Like in terms of putting them out there, in terms of the subject of the Regina Hall joke, right? And these other jokes, right?
What
like,
was the Regina Hall joke?
She basically was like, I'm single. I'm inviting up single men. She named Will Smith. She's like, you're not single, but Jada agrees. Come on up, right? Like, as in calling it like,
All
your
was
wife.
the same that see, I didn't see the whole
I'm
show.
single, right?
Wow.
So I think that that joke is a lot more boom, right?
Yeah.
I think Chris might have got smacked for that joke. I think that joke might have got Chris Rock smacked in terms of you know, like all the things of his own ego. So when we're talking about like protection, I'm like, whose ego was really being protected with that smack of Rock in terms of him exerting his manhood that everyone all over the world knows has been undermined. Now, I like Will Smith a lot. I like Chris Rock a lot. This is not just, this is, you asked the question, you brought it up and giving you my opinion. I think that Chris Rock, I don't think Chris Rock or Will Smith as men have been protected. I think that Black women have to protect people they love by not, by pulling them back, by not, you know, there are a lot of things that went on for him to think that that was the way that he would be a man to his woman, and that would be acceptable. Now, we might not want to talk about that, but if a woman loves the man she's with, she's not going to want him to risk his life over something that is not life-threatening.
Right.
And I have to deal with that.
Anytime you put your hands on another man, you could die, he could die. Right? Ain't no.
For the last 10, 15 years in these streets, one of the main things I've had to do, and I'm now doing professionally, is trying to, you know, keep our kids from killing each other. Right. So for all of the principle that I acknowledge in the gesture, you know, you're absolutely right. In the end, it didn't have to go that far, and Jada herself could have pulled him back for the name of, for sake of decor, and to keep things from, you know, from potentially degenerating into something else. It was in legal language, and me and Ed talked about this, right? It was simple assault. It was battery. The police were talking about, you know, we can't take him in. That would have been horrible.
Yeah,
right.
But it was there. What we gonna say? I ain't do it. The whole world saw it.
Right. That was another reason why I said he could have smacked Chris backstage if it was that serious. He could have did that backstage.
I mean,
do that on camera.
So there, I will take,
everybody.
you know, I will take, you know, the criticism for what I said.
Does Will get to go to court and say not guilty when 15 million people?
Nope.
When 15 million people, there are 15 million witnesses.
Well, you know, the song said it wasn't me.
No,
right.
No charges are being pressed. Chris Rock,
So
like, I'm just processing, right?
Well, finally, let me say this too, as an actor, right? I am glad that he won for the role that he played.
Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to Black men and Black women winning Oscars, it's usually something so beneath who we are, it's almost disgusting.
Right.
All the great work that the great Denzel Washington did, right? He gets an Oscar for being a thug, a corrupt policeman, right? Halle
Berry. Don't even talk about Halle Berry.
Yeah, you know,
don't even talk about why Halle Berry won.
Oh, Monsters Ball, Play Bob Thornton.
I mean, and those are great from a craft standpoint. Those are great acting. You know, Sidney Poitier, the great stuff he did. He being a boy for white nuns. You know,
see, that's the thing. That's the thing.
You know,
that's the thing that
he got to play the role for being a Black man who stood up for his children.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
No matter
Finally.
his imperfections, a
Right.
working class black man that trained his daughters to be stars,
To
take
be the
on
best.
world.
To be the
That I
best.
appreciate it. And
You
I
know
don't
what?
want that to get overlooked by that jack slap.
You know what? But that's how he took the focus away from that.
Yeah.
That's what's going to be remembered.
Right.
I absolutely have to concede that.
You know, listen, the cliff note is going to be, and he won the Oscar that night.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be. The slap, all that crap, and by the way, he won for Best Actor.
Right.
You know, and
It overshadowed everything.
we picked the best nights. We picked the best nights to destroy stuff. I tell you, first time a full black production team, a black director.
Yes, and that could have been so. That could have gone.
Questlove.
That's why I give Chris credit.
Questlove in the documentary.
That's right. Questlove. That hurt me, man. Because Questlove won that.
Will winning the Oscar.
Samuel L. Jackson,
and it's gonna be remembered for a slap.
Yeah, that hurt me.
You know, I'm very torn.
Yeah.
Zayd, I hear you about protecting your women. There's not a person. You know, I agree with you. Black women than me. It's the reason I helped Sheila Coley become the first African American chief of police in Newark. It's the reason that I helped Victoria Pratt become the first Dominican judge. It's the reason that I've done Sarah Jones, who was an attorney in Newark, elevated her to the council to the president of the city council, and now she's gone on to where she is the vice president of government affairs for Blue Cross Blue Shield in New Jersey. So I've always tried to elevate and protect women. But I'm sorry, Jada played Will that night because Will was laughing at the joke.
Right.
At first.
And then he saw that she wasn't.
Then you see Jada kind of dip down in her seat and look sad. And he looks over at her. And that's when he figures, like, she gave him that, you're not going to do nothing about this? And to John's point, many dudes have been killed for trying to, you know, and the thing about it is, you know, here are two great black men, great actors, have risen from the pinnacle, come from nothing, and made themselves something, and we're going to remember them for a slap. You know, it tears away from all of their hard work to get where they want to get, because what you saw that night was the majority population of this country taking a sigh of relief. Good. Now we can put them back in their place.
Right.
Because they've given us an excuse. Always wait for an excuse to tear you down. And that gave them the opening for Will Smith's downfall.
Yeah.
I heard a story about
and I'll finish. Jada played Will because she didn't have to be. He looked over at her and she kind of sunk in her seat and looked at him with that sad face. You know, the funniest thing I heard was, why didn't he slap Atlanta or Phoenix or whatever that dude's name?
Yeah, Alcina.
Why isn't he slapping the dude that's having an affair with his wife, and sit at that red table and take that from, you know, it's just such a complicated situation, you know, and like I said, those two guys that come up for nothing, neither one of them are, you know, tough guys in the street, and both of them had talked about their inability, you know, as young men that, you know, Chris was bullied, and Will says that, you know, he watched his father abuse his mother, and he apologized to her for not stepping up. And, you know, and I kind of find myself in that position too. I ain't no tough guy, but I ain't no punk. But, you know, I don't want to fight. I ain't looking for fights. But, you know, kind of know how to finish them.
Right.
So what happened that night was, you know, Will kind of was wrestling with all those demons too.
Mm-hmm.
That he felt inadequate growing up and not standing up. And Chris, you know, went through the same thing. You know, it took him back to his childhood.
Yeah.
Of people doing that to him. So it's
Yeah.
just a really bad emotional, psychological situation as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But we'll figure this. I cannot sit back again. This time, I gotta do something. I'm tired of this in my life. And you know, would he have slapped a white guy? Would he have slapped? Would he have slapped?
Dave Chappelle or somebody?
You know, Dave Chappelle.
Would he slap 50 Cent?
Well, I mean, he might try to slap Dave Chappelle too, but he's not going to slap
Jeff Ross. He's not going to slap Jeff Ross or somebody like that.
Right. He's not going to slap somebody that's built and strong and big.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, Chris is a slim brother.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just so bad in so many ways. And Will got played by Jada. And I mean, she should be happy that he's still with her after that.
He could have gone to jail. Yeah, he could have been charged. Yeah, he definitely could have been charged.
Yeah.
And that's not over because they're still talking about what they're going to do in terms of sanctioning him in some way.
Right.
Well, he resigned from the academy tonight.
And that would be horrible if they
he resigned from the academy tonight.
It's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be some tough times for his career.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know,
like
he just resigned from the academy.
Yeah, they've given them the opening now to say, well, we can't use him anymore. You know how they do. They got the opening now to destroy him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and justifiably, you know, I always say they got the gun. They got the gun. They want to use it. Don't give them the bullets.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, well, you got us. DJ Rhino seemed to have gotten us off to a start of.
I just had to get y'all's take on it.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, that's the Fresh Prince out of Philly. And I just want to say this too. You know, I was disappointed at the fact because, you know, I was really big on the fact that Questlove was going to get this grant, was going to get this Oscar for Summer of Soul. I watched it again yesterday. I watched Summer of Soul. I was probably my 5th time watching it now. And it was really good. And I was just really happy for him. And I really felt like instead of making this whole thing about himself, he should have looked at this like, you know, Will Smith is the OG out of from Philly and Philly hip hop. He was supposed to pass that love down, pass that whole
Questlove. You got a hell of a
wisdom down to Questlove. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a hell of a point.
It was supposed to show him that Philly brotherly love. You know what I'm saying? And you know, he just made it about himself and what
he let his emotions get the best of him, man.
Yeah,
you know,
that hurt, man. That really hurt. But what else we got? I mean, that's it for me.
Thanks, Rhino.
Appreciate getting everyone, because it's one of those things that doesn't mean right, but it's one of those things that doesn't mean anything but means a lot, right? And I hate talking about it because it's like it's just trivia, but it really, because of who they are and what they represented or meant to us.
Yeah,
it hurts.
And it's a unique situation when you think about it. You know, when you talk about the trauma and everything that's involved in it, just like Payne said, you know, all of the psychological stuff that takes place. You know, it's a human situation, and that's why we're kind of related to that.
There.
Yeah.
So, Congressman, what's going on, man? What else is going on?
Well, we had a pretty good week on Capitol Hill. John, we making it illegal in the United States, a federal law to decriminalize marijuana. So I know you'll be happy.
Wait, hold up. Can you repeat that? Hold it. Wait. Are you saying that
you didn't know that?
Because I've just been looking at all the coverage of Russia and the Ukraine, and I missed that. Is that how they did it? Is it that we've been looking at the Ukraine and what's going on in there, and then they legalize weed?
We voted on today, sir, about 1:00 this afternoon to decriminalize marijuana, and expunge records of hundreds of thousands of African Americans in this country, and move forward. We have. I guess almost 30, 35 out of 50 states that have state laws that decriminalize it. So the federal government is finally catching up with the states. And finally, I have an appreciation for states' rights. So the states are leading the way. States are leading the way for the federal government to follow. And, I was really proud to vote in the affirmative for that.
Do you think it has a chance of passing the Senate? Is this like one of those? Did it pass in a bipartisan way?
It might pass in the Senate. I think we might have the 50 votes. I'm not sure if it'll be bipartisan. So,
decriminalize. And decriminalize means on a federal level, you can't arrest people for possession of marijuana, and it is no longer a federal crime. And it is effectively been decriminalized in that way. Like it's not legal, but it's not illegal. It's decriminalized, right?
Right. Correct. But that's the first step on the way. It's no longer a what they call a tier 1 or I forget the official term, but they lowered the status of marijuana.
And does that have the effect on, and I'm just asking because I know that a lot of states have been wanting the federal government to take some action so that they can actually put their money in banks, right? Because for years, the marijuana companies and states, they couldn't put their money in federal banks because of the classification of marijuana as a drug. So it started to hurt their ability to be a part of a federal banking system.
Right. That's been the major problem. That's definitely been the major problem with it. People not being able to use the banking system in the country, and how do you secure all this cash and what have you? So,
right, and that's great, man. That is absolutely great. So yes, I'm happy, excited. I'm in a good mood because that's a long time coming. That's a long time coming.
And then also we voted on the reducing the cost of insulin and capped it at $35. So that's a huge bill.
Now that is huge, right? Because they're now I'm hoping that's bipartisan, because if it's not, it's like Republicans don't have diabetes, right? Around the South, right? Have they been? So is this a bipartisan bill?
It is not. They went to the floor yesterday and accused the Democrats of price fixing, and it's very unfortunate. But they have a bill that reduces it to $50. The $50 cap, but ours is $35. But somehow we're price fixing and they're not. Go figure. And why is there $50 as opposed to $35? I mean, the next fight that I'm going to have on Capitol Hill is taking on the middlemen, the PMs, the insurance program managers, I believe they're called. They're the ones that really, bolster these prices from where the pharmaceutical gets it, and then where they take it, and then it's passed on to the consumer. So that's what really needs to be addressed. And it's something that I continually heard over the past 3 or 4 years in different settings with pharmaceutical companies. Everybody talks about these middlemen. Well, we need to, I approached Frank Pallone, who's chairman of Energy and Commerce, and that deals with the healthcare system and everything. And I said, we got to go after these PMs. And he said, no, that's a good thing. But we really need to look into that and delve into why they are able to, charge exorbitant prices when a lot of times the pharmaceutical company has a minimal cost to it. And, so here's my story. So I went to the floor yesterday, and you could probably go to my Instagram or my Facebook and see it. I spoke on the issue, being one of the only members, probably one of the only members that's willing to admit that I'm on insulin. So I went to the floor and argued that, how dare you not want to, help people on fixed incomes and poor people afford this drug, this life-saving drug, this drug they need to stay alive. And naturally, once again, you want to, because they're in that position, you want to charge exorbitant fees for it because they need it to stay alive. So one time I left Jersey left Jersey to come down to Washington, forgot my insulin because you have to refrigerate it. Forgot to get the insulin out of the refrigerator, put it in my bag. So I go to the drugstore down here that we use on Capitol Hill. And I said, I need to purchase some insulin. So she said, well, Mr. Payne, your insurance, isn't ready to cover it yet. It's too soon. So, I'm doing all right. So I said, it's all right. I'll pay for it. And so she goes back and prepares it, gets it ready. She comes back out, hands me the bag and says, $348, sir. I was like, what? And because I had insurance, I never knew what the cost was because you just go to the register, they punch it in, you take the bag and you go, or you got a $5 copay or whatever it is, and you just go. $348 for a vial that big. And it was just shocking. What happens, when I've gone through the stuff with, and I talked about, I have on a cam boot now. I've got an ulcer on my foot, diabetic ulcer on my foot that I've been trying to heal for 8 months now. And it's, it's slowly going, but, with diabetes, it's slow. And so I said, I was mad. I don't know how I came up with it, but I said, I'm not wearing this boot as a fashion statement. I have a diabetic ulcer on my foot now that's taking 8 months to heal. And this is the 5th one that I probably had in 7 years. And so don't tell me
that's
about
nothing to play with either. That's
price fixing. When you got somebody that's got to decide whether to take a life-saving drug or not, or skip a day because they can't afford to get another one. People are insane. You're insane. And so everybody, told me, that they appreciated me doing that because I didn't have to tell everybody my situation. But I've always used my medical situation to try to get to people to understand, to either take better care of yourself or you don't want to end up in my position.
And to your point, Tori, we should be fostering transparency in government. I salute you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, people take it as a weakness sometimes. If you have, something you're dealing with in politics, then they kind of take that as a weakness. So most people don't, own up to it. But I think I'm an example of what not to do, or if you don't do what you need to do, you'll end up, like me. So it's been positive. Brothers out in the street stopped me in Newark and they like, man, I saw you at Beth Israel. Thank you, man, for telling your story. You scared me and I ain't doing, I'm giving up this and that. Thanks. So it's, it's mission accomplished. But I just wonder about what happens to the kid that, is in Newark and he's got his toes, his toe is turning colors, but he doesn't have any health insurance. So he doesn't do anything about it until it turns purple. And so then he shows up the emergency room on Saturday night. It's full of people that need health care. And the doctor turns him rushing to the next patient and says, your foot's got to come off. When I showed up at the doctor said to me, we're going to do everything we can to save your foot. That's what has to happen in this country. Right. Everybody should be told that. Not just people of means and power, but every American should be told that. And that's what I'm fighting for.
But when you're talking about midterms that are coming up.
But remember, Congressman Payne, remember the doctor you had on and he was talking about the amount of money that these people get to amputate people's foots and legs,
Oh yeah.
as opposed to giving them care. So
Oh yeah. You know what? Maybe
why
next
not do
month
that?
I'll have him back on with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brother was down in
Dr.
Mississippi.
Facchetti.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Right,
he's been doing great work, man. He's getting national attention and awards, and he is just incredible, an incredible brother. So I have him back on, and we can catch up with him and see where he is and all of that.
when we're talking about midterms and we're talking about how the Democrats may not do well, right, in these midterms, isn't it frustrating that the issue like this, which affects Republicans just as much as Democrats, it affects the southern states even more than the other states, right? Like if you're looking at Mississippi, if you look
Right.
at Alabama, you look at Georgia, you look at all these deep southern states where you have tons of Republicans who are paying and can't afford to pay for insulin drugs, who are making these tough choices, and they keep voting for the Republicans who do not care. Is there any strategy that this will be a part of the midterms to just like you ran the bill, you have the Republicans on, actually they're saying, no, my constituents, I don't care if you or your family members have diabetes, you're going to pay full price, or you're going to pay $50 or more, right? Because like how does this play out, right? Like how do they keep getting away with it time after time of making policy that hurt the majority of poor white people who are Republicans?
I think Lee Atwater at the time of Ronald Reagan came up with a strategy that has been in place since then, and they've run their drill. They've decided there were three things that were going to be important to them. Federal court judges, because they knew what they meant in the system, anti-abortion, and no new taxes. And they've taken those three things and have agreed on them and have run with it and have consistently had that be their message over a 20 or 30-year period. And it's come to fruition now. It takes a long time to get that, in motion, but they were consistent, stayed with it, and now they're reaping the benefits for them on it, while the rest of us suffer. So, and I continue to talk about that, John. I would consider you a little left of me, or a more progressive, and for whatever reason where we are, but yet and still we're both in the same tent, and we have to work together. So when their tent and their focus is so narrow, my tent has left-wing progressives and conservative Democrats and LGBTQ and Fight for Water, the Water Group, and the Humane Society for Animals. And our tent is so much bigger and encompasses so many other people with different issues, that it's just not as cut and dry as the Republicans, and therein lies the problem. We have a bigger tent to encompass in order to be successful, and they continue to narrow their focus. At one time they talked about trying to attract more blacks to the Republican Party. They have abandoned that and say, no, we don't need to do that either. So, when you have a narrow focus, it's a lot easier to stay on the track and main focus, as opposed to trying to make sure that everyone else in the world is, everyone else in the United States universe is taken care of. And therein lies one of the issues that we have to face. But we're winners. Regardless of that, we've been winners, and we continue to win, which is why you see the assault on the voting rights. They've realized that, now we vote, and Black women have been instrumental in the Democratic Party and their success over the last 15 years with Obama and up to Biden. And so now they're trying to do whatever they can to dismantle that, because even though they're focused and narrow, they're not winning on the national level as much as they would like. But they have control over most of the state houses, where really the power is controlled, because they can figure what the congressional districts look like. So they attacked it in the right place with the right focus at the right time. And, we've been playing catch up ever since.
We have Donna who's joining us. Hey, Donna, how are you?
They made it back.
Hey, trying to get out of Jersey City today. I'm not I don't know much about the basketball but they had a big parade in Jersey City because the team went the furthest that anybody in that league, as I understand, has ever went.
We don't.
It was a bit, well, I don't know. So obviously, so it was a big to do.
In fact, Donna, I attended both games that they played in Philadelphia, and
oh, you did?
It was very exciting. Yeah, I posted on Instagram. I said my money and my boys went to St. Peter's, so
now that I did know. That's right.
So it was very exciting for them, and it was a great weekend to spend time with them. And
okay, and so they were at all of y'all. You went to you hung out with the boys at the game. Okay,
yeah,
right.
It was great. It was great.
Okay. So you didn't know until they told you. See, I was like, because I haven't been to like a ticker tape race parade like that since the Giants had won back to back. And Jersey City was shut down. Well, and could you move today in Jersey City?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was down at St. Peter's. So
right.
Yeah.
So but coming through there, trying to get out of there, it was people. They were still tonight. They were still hanging out, partying. I know getting on the path this evening, it was everybody. The Navy was there. It was like
and rightfully so. It was a national story of this team, and what they were able to accomplish. And the coach at Seton Hall left. And he recommended Holloway before he left. He said that he should be the next coach, and then he went on this run. So it was always his job. Once Willard was leaving Seton Hall, they always knew it was going to be Shaheen's job. So it's great. He's coming back home, and really he under the tutelage of the coach that's leaving Seton Hall now, he was an assistant coach with him for 10 years.
That's right.
And so he learned it, and I saw it. I'm a big Seton Hall fan. My father and I, that's what we did together. And I've been going to Seton Hall basketball games for 55 years. And so I kind of know the team and know
so
Shaheen.
You started when you was 1 year old? Okay.
Oh, -5. But it was just a great thing to see. And now he's done that, and he's back home at Seton Hall. And the nice thing is St. Peter's hired another assistant from Seton Hall to go there to replace him. Wow. So it's a nice flow.
Yeah.
And actually run, and I don't know if anybody has taken the time to I was driving down, but they renamed Essex County's gym the Cleo Hill Gym. So I was like, so that's a big shout out to Orange, Cleo Hill Senior from Orange. So the Essex County Gym is no longer the Essex County Gymnasium, it's the Cleo Hill Gymnasium. That's another big. I was like, look at the Essex County, Jersey City just doing big things. To drive down there and to see the big words Cleo Hill Gymnasium, right across, you got the new, well, that's from across from your office. So I know you can look out your window and see it. So I was like, wow, that's big.
Yeah, rightfully so. He deserves it. A lot of, great history there at Essex County. So very, 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 very well deserved.
Yeah, so a lot going on down in that area, and I'm actually working in a location down in Bayonne, and I remember talking to you about the rail system developing and what your vision was, and the light rail now goes all the way out to Bayonne, so I can see where your vision was that no, we don't want the things of the past. We want to be ahead of it. And now they're getting ready to in the Bayonne area build a new. They just got approved to build a new studio at the old Texaco site, Texaco gas site. They're gonna build a studio for performing, for doing movies and things like that. So a lot going on in that area. So
Yeah, there's one proposed for West Orange too that I've been privy to and trying to help move forward. I think the largest production company in the world is going to create a studio in West Orange that is supposed to be, when it's done, world renowned, state of the art. So Whoopi Goldberg has something to do with it, and a few other people in West Orange.
and what's Orange is under your belt? Under your belt, right?
Yeah, well, I had part of it around the
Right.
Edison Museum, but
Right.
now I have the entire municipality, and so I have a bigger stake and influence there. And
Right.
this state of the art movie theater production theater is coming there as well. So we're very excited about the opportunities that potentially will create, a great number of jobs. And, really proud that, the IIJA, the infrastructure bill, we finally have done the calculations, and I will be bringing 400,000 new jobs to New Jersey over 10 years.
All right.
And so I'm very, very proud of that.
Okay, that's it. And going back to Whoopi Goldberg, who is one of your constituents now. If it's
Absolutely.
she's down in that area.
Yeah,
So
people don't realize she lives in Llewellyn Park. So
yeah, exactly. And I also read today that Biden appointed Taraji to the HBCU board too.
Yeah.
So y'all doing your work. Y'all gotta talk about y'all are doing
Howard,
something.
to Howard, yeah.
Yeah, she's
where's John? John, I told you that Biden was going to be all right for Black folks.
where y'all go?
Told you.
And knowing Taraji, she's not only just going to add her name to it. She's going to bring some work and she's going to bring some influence to it.
Absolutely. No, yeah, as well.
So that's a big.
Yeah, I actually was talking to one of my
right?
I was actually talking to one of my friends who was like, dogging Biden on the Supreme Court nominee. And I'm like, the defense attorney, right? Like, we haven't had a defense attorney on the Supreme Court. Like, she's not a prosecutor. She wasn't like, oh, let's put him in jail. She was like, no, she was a federal public defense attorney.
Correct.
And she was on the Sentencing Commission. So she's like, prison industrial complex bad. Like, and spoke out, fought against it, like pretty much.
Hence the treatment she received last week.
Right. Because of the.
And then you talk about some folks that needed to be jack slapped.
Yeah,
I'd be in jail.
Congress. I'd have supported.
I would be in jail right now, y'all. I don't know which one I would have slapped.
We should have sent him to Congress last week. We'd be like, look, there, go there.
But we should all be proud. We should all be proud that our senator stepped up in her defense.
Corey had a moment.
Yes, Corey.
Stronger than anyone in the whole United States.
Well, also just thinking about you and your staff, and as questions come about, how they grill you or they go back and forth on the questions that are going to be put forth, and that it could possibly go this way. And as a debater, Jonathan, you try to play both sides of how an answer could be answered. Some of the questions that she was asked, particularly, and Joe Madison, he really went in on this one, was the senator who asked her the definition of a woman. What is her definition of a woman?
Right.
And
She should have said your mother. Next question.
She should have said your father. She should have said that's the definition of your woman. She should have said your father. What?
I'm so glad I wasn't in the building. I'd have gone nuts. And you'd have to be bailing me out. I'd be facing all kind of charges.
Oh my goodness. No, I mean, okay. So also the reason why I appreciate the Supreme Court nominee is that she was a former debater. She debated in Miami, from Miami Palmetto. I actually knew her debate coach. I knew her debate coach when I was a high school student, and I knew her debate coach when I was a young coach. She was a much older coach at the time, but she was a legend. She was very much respected for the kids she produced quite consistently. So,
and Jonathan, I want to say in her discussion that came up in one of her answers. How did she become? And it was, she started talking about how she was called on in the debate team, and how that influenced her to go on to do what she's doing today. So she spoke about that in her testimony as well. So,
and that's true and that tends to be true of most debaters. Most debaters, when they go on to do things, they really do credit academic high school debate as being one of the most important academic things they've done. That's why I always push it. That's why I'm like, it needs to be funded, needs to be expanded, needs to be taught in schools. We need to do in Newark and New Jersey and all these other districts what they did in Miami, because Miami is known for having debate widespread across their school districts, which is why when they had that school shooter, they were able to have so many articulate kids talking about gun control, and they knew about it because they actually debated the topic the year before. So a lot of the arguments they were making were arguments that the entire national debate community had been arguing just the year before. So people were like, wow, these kids, those kids were accused of being setups, of being actors. It was like, no, they were high school debaters. They had high school debaters.
Wait till y'all see. Wait till y'all see the 10th congressional debate. The debate that's going to come out of the 10th congressional district. We're going to get Congressman Payne to get that as one of his things that he can work on. I think that's something that you with the young people working and just having them to have a debate, competition within the 10th congressional district. And
we could have it at the Payne School. They have a beautiful courtroom there on the campus of the school. John, you should check it out. It's a beautiful room, and I think they named it after Chris Christie, actually. Look, Joe D, he ain't no sucker, man. He knows how to get the money. Name that courtroom after him, man. He got a couple $100,000 out the state.
I always say about Joe D, you be ready to call Joe D up and be like, Joe D, and before you can start the conversation, he'll be like, Jonathan, did you notice, did you get the invitation about the statue that we're putting up in your honor? before you can get to your conversation, he'll go right, Jonathan, did you get the invitation about the statue we're putting up?
Say what you want to say about his politics and where he started out, but he has really have been incredible for the historic transformation of this county. You look at the Payne School, you look at the
everything since day one.
The former jail, jail is in my office building. It's just been amazing what he's done, and the statues to African Americans in Essex County. I mean, the Rosa Parks statue is beautiful. Of course, the one of my father. And now the new Dr. King, he had a smaller one there, said that wasn't big enough. So now you've got a 16-foot statue of Dr. King on a 10-foot pedestal, and it just looms over that fountain now. and he took the smaller one and put it inside. He's doing a bust of President Obama that he's going to add inside the Dr. King courthouse, and also has one of John Lewis already. So,
Wow.
you know, say what you want to say about, you know, he started out without a bottle, but he slowly distanced himself once he got situated. He slowly distanced himself from out of bottle. That was his vehicle, but once he established himself, he slowly distanced himself from him and has continued to do amazing stuff. I mean, now he's rebuilding the vocational school up in West Caldwell.
Right.
And so, you know,
What did you used to say about Congressman Payne? He'll be at a meeting and be like, "Yeah, we want this finished by June 15th," and he'll be
right.
walking out the back door. We
Oh
want
yeah.
it done by April 1st.
Yeah. The funny thing was, you know, the old jail had that old parking garage behind it. And so he was doing that when he was turning it into the Veterans Park that's really beautiful now. And so they had a groundbreaking, and he went up on the shovel and he knocked the first piece of the building down. And he said, "This will be done on August 15th." And then to the crowd, and as he was going out the back, he was telling the guys doing the project, "I want this done by June 30th. He said, "But you just told all of them." "I don't care what I told them. This is what I'm telling you." Right? He's a real taskmaster. He is a project manager. He has gotten this thing down to a science. And you know, the county, I mean, they were junk bonds when he became county executive. They have a AAA rating now.
Right.
I mean, he's just done an incredible job for the county, really.
And would you say, Congressman, a lot of it is his vision? You know, he has vision for what he
Absolutely.
sees. It is his vision that he sees for his county. You know, he
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
sees. He has a vision for what he would like to see, as he remember, because he was an all-star athlete when he was coming up, right?
Barringer High School was quarterback and went on to play in college. Never made it to the pros, but you know, he just has an incredible vision. All of these buildings are his ideas, and you know, you know, they redid the Wassessing Park. There's a new child's play area, but it's for handicapped children. Now, I was the one that gave him the idea. I saw one in New Orleans, and I called him on a Sunday. I said, "Joe, I just saw your next project." I said, "It's an ADA compliant playground." And he's like, "Oh man, nobody has any of those. Where did you see, Donald? Where did you?" He flew to New Orleans to see it and came back. And if you go to Wassessing Park now in Essex County, it's one of the few ADA compliant playgrounds for children. So you can use wheelchairs there and walkers, and you know, it's a playground set up for those children. So he's just incredible. And I mean, he did that in, like, from the time I told him, it was a year, and it was done.
From thoughts
And
and
people
what?
don't know, ADA is Americans with Disability Act.
Right.
So in terms of accessibility for people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Donna?
And what people don't understand is that, I guess when you live here, maybe you don't appreciate it, but when you see there are commercials, I could say, as far as like upstate New York, about Turtleback Zoo, about our
Yep.
area, about South Mountain. Our area is very highly recognized for all of the open space
It's a
and
destination.
buildings. Yeah, it's
It's a
definitely
destination
is.
now. And the Turtleback Zoos, Donna's right. When he took over as freeholder, they were going to close it down because it was an inhumane situation for animals. Now it's accredited by the Zoological Society of the United States, and so, you know, it's unreal. I mean, you know, and he continues to add things there. You know, the zip line and sea lions, and you know, it's really a beautiful place for children.
And I have to say, I did the zip line. I did it with
All
my
right.
nephew. Yeah, Congressman, we had technical difficulties um last show when we were cutting off. You went off early because of technical difficulties, and
Mhm.
we didn't get to to give proper honors that it was the anniversary of your dad leaving us last month. Am I correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
thank you for that. It's been 10 years, and
10
you know,
already.
yeah, yeah, we miss him. We miss him dearly, and you know, there's several folks gave him great honor and recognized the anniversary of that, and so we really appreciate it. And I just try to continue to do the work for the people of the 10th district, as they were served the prior 23 from me arriving there. And so, thank you for that.
You're welcome, sir. And how are your relations? And I know all the work he did in Africa, and that work is just, you know, it was so much work that he did over in Africa. And I know Joe Madison would happen to be telling one of the stories they had did over there one time and a trip that they were on. So
Yeah, he was considered the foremost authority on African nations in the Congress, and people think that he, accomplished that once he arrived there. But he had actually been traveling to Africa a decade or so before that as the president of the YMCA's of the United States. So he was the actual president of of the YMCA of the U.S. And so subsequently, he represented the Y at the World Alliance. The United States at the World Alliance, and like any organization, you have committee assignments, and he ended up getting on the World Refugee Committee, which allowed him to travel into Africa and all around the world. And so by the time he went to Congress, all the young attaches that were, staffers in these countries were now becoming the prime ministers and presidents, and they all knew Donald Payne. It was funny. He went on a trip as a freshman congressman, and everything is seniority on Capitol Hill. So he was way at the end. So the senator that was leading the trip was up there, Senator Simon, and then he get to this, and the guy would kind of look down the line, and then they go, Donald Payne, and they would bypass all these guys and run down to him. And Paul Simon, the senator leading, like, who is that guy down there? It was pretty funny. Like, who is this guy to keep going down there, bypassing everybody to get to this guy? And it was because of the relationships that he had built a decade before that. And his work in Africa is still duly noted. I mean, the country of South Sudan, he had a great part in playing in that development of that. The Muslims there and the indigenous folks had been fighting for as long as they've been around. And so they finally split up for the Sudan and the South Sudan. And, on my father's death, you receive all the condolences and what have you from around the world, and, getting them from all kinds of people. And the one from the president of South Sudan, had the usual condolences and all. But it was his postscript on the end that really, really encapsulated what my father had been able to do throughout his career. And it just said, P.S., if it was not for your father, my country would not exist. And so, that was really the highest compliment and really, really brought it home for me, the impact that he had around the world. So we miss him. I would rather him still be your congressman than me, because that means he'd still be here. So, but We all got to go that way.
Yeah, 10 years already. Well, again, and we just send our love, and we'll keep hearing the stories, and there's enough stories to tell for another 10 years. So
Oh yeah,
we'll
absolutely.
always reminisce on times like this.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we do have to do some special shows just to have that conversation because there's so much history that we don't know, right? Like I don't know how many times this story that you just told has been told, but not many, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
I think that a lot of people are hearing that for the very first time,
Yeah.
and these things are important. They have impact, and I gather there are a lot of stories like that of people he helped deeply,
Right.
and you know, those stories need to be told as well.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I
But that,
appreciate it.
but you know, Congressman, you know, those are some stories we can tell. But he was also our councilman. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So those are some incredible stories that all of us who were young and kids that would, you know, that our first encounter with politics was through, you know, Donald Payne Sr. You know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, those are some incredible stories that we can tell. Congressman Payne, how old would he be today?
88.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And James Ballantyne always talks about youth in government, and he talks about the impact of. And I know, you know, James. Actually, the first time, Congressman, I met you you were with James Ballantyne,
Oh, okay.
and he talks about youth in government, and he talks about the importance of that on his life. All right, and I know that your father's very involved in that in terms of like that whole level of giving back.
Absolutely. Yeah, the YMCA, pretty interesting. The YMCA was a vehicle he used to engage young people in the late 50s. He was a school teacher at Southside High School. And he wasn't much older than the kids. In fact, sometimes they thought he was one of the students. And you know, all the little teenage girls had a crush on Mr. Payne, and he was really a great teacher for them. You know, back in those days, they had all those little, you know, everybody thought they were in a gang. You know, you had 3-4 guys from one block, you know, stay off my block or this and that or what have you. So little, you know, little street gangs. And what he did,
Territorial, yeah.
right, what he did was he organized them and started bringing them down to the YMCA and taught them the fraternal system. So he turned all these little street gangs into fraternities and the young girls into sororities, and then taught them to do community service. And so like the sororities would go up to the, you know, the orphanage that was in Essex County and do the girls' hair, because, you know, the women that were taking care of them were not probably predominantly white and didn't know how to do the girls' hair. So, you know, once a month, a group would go up and do all the girls, you know, comb their hair and plait it and, you know, fix it. And, you know, that was one of the community service things that they did. And they would do cleanups and all kinds of stuff. And then he just continued to grow that program to where at one time he had close to like 100 to 200 young people involved in this system. And they would give parties on Friday nights at the Y, you know, pay a quarter, and they would raise the money and then go ahead and save that up and do something at the end of the year or go out for a nice dinner. But, you know, he taught them a lot of responsibility and how to organize and that. And he just continued to use the Y as a vehicle. You know, they started out on Jones Street because they weren't allowed to come to the Y downtown. It was segregated. And so before, you know, before a certain year, they had to be at the Jones Street front storefront Y until they were able to come downtown finally, once it was integrated. And he just continued to use the Y and use them. And then he started taking kids, you know, when after the rebellion in Newark, schools and everybody started to open up taking Black students. And so my father would load up a car and take 4 or 5 kids to Colgate or the University of Pennsylvania or wherever, and get them admitted to college. And then it became such a big program that he was taking buses of kids to different colleges. And so that's really how he cut his teeth on public life. And, really just continued to move up in the YMCA and demonstrate leadership till one day he turned around and they elected him president of the YMCA of the United States.
Wow.
And he was the first Black and the youngest ever to be elected at 33.
Wow.
So, yeah. And it's a 1-year term, but they liked him so well, they rewrote their bylaws and elected him to another 2-year term.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Y was really, he figured out, hey, I can use this place for stuff, and
Right.
and ended up being the president. So
We have to surprise you one day and bring former Councilwoman Jones Bell on, because she was in one of the sororities, and she always tells the story of how he helped teach them, like from her area from the South 10th Street, how all of those kids would come down and he would teach them how to organize. So she tells that exact story. So we have to surprise you one day, so you could just hear from a perspective from a kid who grew up under, as one of the members of one of those fraternities and sororities.
And it really was a beautiful thing, because it was really, Donna, how he created his political base.
Yeah.
Every kid in Newark knew him. So by the time they came voting age, everybody knew Mr. Payne, and subsequently, their parents knew him because he was always dealing with them. And so it was really how he created his political base. It was really amazing. And my story is not as interesting as that, but through my work with the Essex County Regional Services Commission and doing the student transportation, I kind of did the same thing. I got to know, the principals got to know me, the parents. I was resolving issues with the school bus transportation, doing transportation for the most handicapped students, very sensitive. And so that's really what created my base, Donna. I just one day turned around, I said, I'm resolving all these issues for these kids.
Right.
Maybe I can help their parents.
Right.
And, that's real where I created my base. People think, a lot, these cynics, Donald Payne's son, no, I worked for it. I didn't get in elected politics, as a kid. I've been out here. I wasn't elected till I was 50.
Yeah.
Wow.
Grassroots is very serious.
Wait, you weren't elected to you weren't elected till you were 50?
Yep.
But you were a councilman before that, right?
I was a district leader. And then in 2005 I ran for my first public office, which the county actually asked me to run for freeholder, and I went on the ticket. But then 5 months after that, I ran for city council. Some people were upset about that because I just become freeholder. Like, why are you running for council now? Well, the party asked me to do freeholder, but I always wanted to be a councilman in Newark. And Donna, you know how it is in politics. Windows open and they close quick.
Right.
So, what if I'd waited 4 years? The same opportunity potentially couldn't be there. So the window was there, and I jumped at it, and I was successful. So
yeah.
I
know that we're a little over time. That you were just dropping so much. You're dropping so much stuff that was new, and that was we usually don't go into the biography, but
it takes a sister to get you, on the right track. Thank you, Don.
Fair enough.
Well, Congressman Payne Sr. is always, there's a lot to be said. And we were going to ask you that question, but we started having a technical difficulty. So we just making up for the little time we lost last time. So we're glad
Fair
to extend. Yes.
Yeah. Thank
Yep.
you.
So is there anything how you like to give you the last word for the show? Are you and Ed? Ed, I know you just you jumped on.
My brother. Ed, my brother.
So Ed?
No, listen, man. I'm always captivated when folks go down memory lane, and it's really really interesting, man, to hear those stories. So no, I'm comfortable hearing the congressman speak.
All right. So
So
how
when
are
we
you?
come back, when Congressman come back, we'll have a new Supreme Court justice. Will he be?
I think so. I do believe so.
By May. So when we come back, we'll have.
It'll be bipartisan too, because Joan Collins has already acknowledged that she will vote for the Supreme Court nominee, and I think one or two others might join in as well. So Lisa Murkowski and maybe what's his name, the former president, for a presidential candidate,
Mitt Romney.
Romney
yeah,
Romney already signed on, right? Yeah.
Okay. Did he?
I thought I thought Romney. I thought I read today that Romney signed on. I could be ahead of myself. So
you're right.
All right. Well, that's what our Mother's Day topic will be about: our new Supreme Court justice.
Right. Wow, that's right. And the Mother's Day will be coming up. So thank you so much, Congressman. We'll let you have the last word. We've already thanked all our guests. We're thanking the Board of Education people, Reverend Howard, and Ronsha Dickerson for all coming on. Thank you, and you have the last word.
Well, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to always come on and talk about different issues and things that we are important to our community, and just want to say thank you for the forum, and maybe next month we could talk about, I don't know if electoral politics are something that is that is a topic on this forum, but I'm in an interesting primary race, and so maybe we'll talk about that a little.
Absolutely. Because
Ramadan season has just begun, right?
Yes.
Ramadan. Okay. So
all right. So thank you, and good night, and next week.
Peace. Peace. 2 fingers.